like, I'm not going to do this, but this will work.
Sick.
Yeah, I fucked up so bad on this trip. But
2 Band-Aids and some Tylenol and baby aspirin.
yeah, correct. Yeah. I had there was 2 Advil in there. I took that. And then I splinted my leg with my trekking poles. I broke my trekking poles down and splinted my leg with it. And like just I had this like little roll of athletic tape, just taped that up. And then I was like, okay, what's next? Get dry. Get as dry as possible. So like my pants are wet, but I couldn't, they were like.
Well, you're splinted now. They're not coming off.
They're not coming off. So I was like, okay, what do we need to do here? So I had a tarp out. So I put the tarp down so then I could then sit on something dry. And then I put on my warming layers. I had a puff coat. Luckily, that's what saved me, was my puff coat. And probably my sleeping bag was dry too. So like I put my puff coat on. And then I was like, okay, what's next? I've got the legs splinted. Okay, I'm trying to maintain as much core temperature as I can. Now what? And so then I was like, okay.
I mean, is this literally like a run through of like, what's the first thing likely to kill me is getting cold?
Yes.
So fix that problem first.
I went immediately into like problem solving mode where I was like, okay, what are my 5-yard targets? What are my 10-yard targets? What are my 25-yard targets? So then I got my warming layers on, and then I was like, okay, well, what's going to get my body temperature back up quick? And I was like, okay, I need to eat some food. So I had my jet boil in there. And luckily my jet boil worked.
Sick.
And I got some water boiled. I had a Mountain House with me, so I jammed some like hot chow immediately. And then I just crawled into my sleeping bag and I zipped it up. And then I just proceeded to lay there under that tree for 8 hours, hoping a grizzly bear didn't come and decide to turn me into a grizzly bear burrito.
Is there a nervousness of deciding to eat?
Yes.
Because I'm fucking cooking food.
Right. And that was heavily weighed out. But I was like, if I don't get my core temperature back up, because the
grizzly bear's not a problem.
I'd been wet for so long, but I'd been moving because we got rained on super hard. And then we were like hiking through this crazy snow melt. And so I'd been wet for a really long time. And I realized, okay, well, if I don't, my warming layers might not be enough to get my core temperature back up to by the time the temperature drops. Because keep in mind, the environmental temperature was supposed to drop down to 28 degrees. And it did. I think it was at 28 or 29 degrees. So I was like, okay, well, I can cook and that might attract a bear, but I might die of hypothermia if I don't. So I could die of hypothermia, or I could.
There's a pretty good chance of hypothermia.
It's better.
Bears are actually pretty rare.
Yeah, I'm gonna roll the dice. I mean, not in Teton or Yellowstone.
Yeah, but you don't see them like.
They're not regularly snacking on humans.
Right.
Yeah. So, but I was like, oh, this will be my luck. It's gonna be the Revenant. Except I'm going to be in a sleeping bag. It's going to suck.
Oh, man.
So then, yeah. So
Are you armed?
With a pocket knife.
God damn it, Brian.
Yeah, I had a pocket knife.
God damn it, Brian. You know so much better than all this.
I know.
Oh, you got cocky.
Yeah.
The universe plays back.
Yeah, I did. So, yeah, I did get cocky because my whole life I've done crazy outdoor adventures. And I've like played in those mountains extensively. And I should have just known better. And I didn't. I just threw my pack together real quick because I just moved to the place where you and Bonnie came and stayed. And I just threw things together real fast because my friend was coming into town. And he's like, hey, let's go on this packing trip real quick. Because we were going to jump in the car together and we were going to go down to Outdoor Retailer Show in Denver. So he came down from Montana, grabbed me. We went to the park to do this quick adventure. And then literally we were going to get up the next morning and we were going to drive to Outdoor Retailer Show.
How quickly those priorities shift.
Oh, man. So anyway...
I could be in a fucking hotel room right now.
Correct. I thought about that a lot. I was like, fuck, I could be at home right now.
I should be fucking warm.
Right.
Why the fuck am I doing this?
Yeah. So then search and rescue shows up at about 3 a.m. Then they proceeded to...
How do you start? So when do they start? Like, did they chopper? Like, how do they get?
They hiked in.
They hiked in. So you start seeing lights or hearing them?
So what happened was I was sleeping very lightly because I was injured and in a tremendous amount of pain. Your kneecap blasting off is not a fun experience, just in case you're wondering. Super painful. You've had a lot of knee fun.
I've never had any catastrophic injuries. Like I tore an ACL, but I haven't had any like muscle shreds. Yeah. I've never had bullets hit me or anything like that. So
yeah, getting blasting your kneecap off is not fun. Like the tendon was severed, like it exploded.
Top or bottom?
On the bottom.
Okay.
Of this one, top on the other one. I've had the same. I've had the same injury in both legs.
Which one was more fun?
The left one, because I had to have it operated on twice.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So
multiple operations. Those are fun.
No, not at all. So, yeah, you're an expert in that.
I wish I wasn't.
Yeah, I wish I was not either. So I laid there. Search and rescue shows up about 3 a.m. I was sleeping very lightly, and I heard branches crackle. And, just being from a military background, too, and then, like, having your, when you sleep in a patrol base, when you're on, your rest plan in the middle of, enemy territory, like, everybody's sleeping super light. So you hear a twig snap, you're, like, immediately awake.
Yeah, I don't know, but I get it.
Yeah. So I heard twig snap because I'm, like, super bear paranoid. And I'm like, oh, fuck. And I, like, start looking around.
God damn it. So you don't know to, like, make
head.
noise to get attention or...
Right. No. I didn't want to do any of that. So I, like, pulled my hood off, and I'm, like, listening, and it's, like, black. And then I hear another twig snap, and I'm like, oh, God. And then I finally see little glimpses of, like, headlamps coming through the trees. And I was like, oh, it's search and rescue. So I'm just, like, laying there under this tree, and I'm like, okay, cool. They're going to see me. And they come, because I'm, like, laying on a bright yellow, like, tarp. So they, like, come hiking up. And they literally walked by me. They didn't see me.
Come on.
Yeah, I was laying underneath this tree, and these branches were covering me right next to the trail. So I literally reached out and grabbed one of the search and rescue dude's ankles, and he let out a scream and, like, almost jumped. He jumped sideways.
Why didn't you say, hey, I'm over here?
Because I was, like, still worried about bears. And I was like, fucking grizzly. No, 4 dudes are not going to stop a grizzly from doing what he wants. Dudes that are unarmed.
Okay.
No one's going to stop a grizzly. So I was like,
fair.
I was a little bear paranoid.
So you scared shit out of this guy.
Yeah, I scared the shit out of him. He jumps. He's like, fuck. And so then he gets me, and then they, like, take me up and pump some drugs into me, which were very welcome at that point in time. Because I was in a
fucking
massive amount of pain.
All of them. Send everything.
Yeah. And so
I don't need to remember getting out of here. It's fine.
Yeah.
Hit the ketamine. Let's fucking vanish.
Yeah. They hit me with some good stuff. So then they're like, okay, well, we can't carry you out because the terrain and the trail's gnarly. So we're going to basket you out. So they pulled me up there. They made me comfortable. They made sure I was dry. They pumped me full of some drugs, got me comfy, and then just sat there and monitored my vitals until 8 o'clock the next morning. The bird showed up. They threw me in a basket, flew me out.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So then got me down to the hospital. 2 days later, I had surgery. And then I was good for like 7 weeks. And then a little 11-year-old girl who's amazing was like, it's my birthday. I need you to go ride ponies with me. And I was like, I don't think that's a good idea. And I did anyway. And I got the asshole horse in the group who bucked me off like a quarter of the mile in, and it blew my knee a second time.
God damn it.
My doctor was super stoked on it.
I'm sure when he was like, oh my God, what happened?
Yeah.
And you were like, well, I was horseback riding. Mm-hmm. And he's like, what the fuck do you mean?
I didn't tell him that. I didn't tell him that.
I don't know what happened to this thing.
I was walking on the back road, and there was some gravel, and my legs slipped into a pothole, and it just blew.
Just riding along.
I was just rehabbing like you told me to do.
Just doing simple rehab.
Yeah, I was just.
God damn
I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. No, that's a complete lie. Fuck. I completely lied to him because I was so ashamed. Because he's a really good surgeon.
Because you're just embarrassed.
And I was embarrassed, so I didn't tell the truth. I was like, nope. I slid into a pothole while I was rehabbing.
Well, like you have a really good story for the first injury.
Yeah.
The second one.
Yeah. No, not at all. Yeah.
Could learn better after the first.
Yeah.
But here we are.
Here we are. So then so after the second surgery is when you and Bonnie showed up to the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then we had our interaction. We'll circle back to that. But since then I took what happened after that? So I remember I took a job. I got hired to do a job as vice president of product development up in Washington. So I moved up to Washington.
That's right.
Did the Pacific Northwest thing. It's pretty awesome. I have friends up there. So
where were you at up there?
I was in Vancouver.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, just right on the other side of the bridge from Portland.
So were you up there through all COVID?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
How's that?
Really wild. So I'm working at this company, and my job, I was the vice president of commercial product development. So I'm supposed to be designing products for commercial release.
Mm-hmm.
And so then what happens is We go to SHOT Show. Then right after SHOT Show, we come back, and I got moved out there. I got settled in, literally on the job for just like a few weeks, I think. And then COVID hits, and people start losing their shit, and like things are going crazy. And so we got deemed essential because we're doing government contract work for DOD. Essential. Essential. So we were allowed to go to the office, and great company, small team of people. The ownership of the company was not wonderful, but the team itself, some of the best people that I've ever worked with.
Right on.
And just the team there.
Well, I guess I mean more like, just being you were in another country during it. Like the only experience I have is kind of how the news and everything got to us here.
Yeah.
So like being there and hearing all this breakdown, like then not being able to get back into the States, was that an issue?
No. I'm sorry. Like I was in Vancouver, Washington.
All right. Yeah. That makes things a lot easier.
Vancouver, Washington, which is just right on the other side of the border from Portland. So
totally know where you're at.
I'm riding that line right there. So anyway, so I didn't have to deal with any of the Canadian nonsense.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that would have been horrible. But so then what happens is, because we're DOD related and because we have connections in DC, I get a phone call from a friend that's working in DC, and he's like, "Hey, President's going to announce a state of national emergency. So whatever you need, you should probably get it right now, because in 2 hours this news hits the airwaves and people are going to lose their shit." And so I was like, cool. I walk into the CEO at the Times office, and I'm like, "Hey, great dude named Randy. He's a JSOC Bubba. Great dude." I look at him and I'm like, "Hey, just got a call from DC. You can check with your friends if you want to, but the president's about to go live with a national state of emergency. I'm leaving, and I'm going to go to my house and fortify it. I'm going to go to Costco. I'm going to get all my supplies. Shit could just get really ugly." Because I got to do Hurricane Katrina support, and that's how I got recruited by Blackwater. But so I've seen what happens to humanity when this type of shit happens.
We don't do really nice things to each other in about a week of discomfort.
Yeah, no. So it's So after living through that experience in Hurricane Katrina, I was like, I knew immediately what humans are capable of when shit goes crazy. So I raced to Costco. I'm at Costco getting all of the things that I need. And I'm getting shelf stable goods because I know better. I'm like, cool, we could be locked down in our houses for a really long time. I may have to bug out if I need to bug out of my house. I don't want to take stuff that's going to spoil. And I just was kind of appalled by the level of acumen of the fellow humans that I saw in there, because there were people in there that were already panic buying shit.
Yeah.
Before they even got the news. So I wasn't alone in there, but I'm like watching people and they're buying like, they're like 2 carts full of like fruits, vegetables, meats, cheeses, all these things. And I'm just like shaking my head because my cart's full of like ramen, peanut butter, trail mix.
Shit, you're thinking long term.
Yeah.
You're not thinking this week.
Right. Canned goods. I'm thinking like, what was funny is what went through my head was fucking the movie Red Dawn, when they're like in the surplus store and they're like, Dad's like, "Take what you need, boys," and they're like, they're putting like cans of beans and like grabbing bows and arrows out of it. Like I thought of that scene in the movie when I'm in Costco, and I'm like, trail mix, beef jerky, and like it's all shelf stable. So I'm gathering up all this shelf stable stuff, and then I check out. I buy like, I think it was like $900 worth of shit.
Yeah.
And so I buy all the stuff. I go back to my house immediately. I then begin building a plan in my house, like a defense plan, like staging body armor, because I have multiple sets of it.
Fuck yeah.
Making sure, I bought a shit ton of batteries.
Man, you handled this so much differently than I did.
Yeah, so
I did nothing. Let me run that by again. I ordered more cookies.
Yeah, I mean,
and did nothing.
It's okay.
Fair.
It's okay.
Fair. Yeah, I just love.
Dude, we're both sitting here.
Yeah, I'm aware. We're still here. So I don't believe your plan's incorrect.
No.
I believe mine's also very naive from things I haven't experienced around the world.
You might say that. Yeah. But it's okay.
It's fair.
It's okay.
I'm aware.
So, yeah, I top off all my magazines. I stage rifles in the upstairs bedrooms.
Oh, man.
I build range cards. So I'm like standing at my bedroom window, like shooting distances with my laser rangefinder, like doing a little quick sketch. And then I'm like, what a fucking idiot. I have a fucking iPad with Procreate on it. So then like I get my iPad up and I'm building like range cards with my iPad and Procreate. I print them off. I tape them to the window.
Jesus Christ.
So next to every window upstairs, there's an AR-15 with a scope that's doped, with that particular ammo, 6 magazines, some body armor, a bottle of water, and range cards. I'm like, cool. I'm ready to rock.
I could see how that would be shocking to some people.
Yeah.
As a measure of Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's very different than I went about it.
Yeah. So then I'm like, cool.
God damn it.
I'm like, okay, cool. I think I've done everything that I could do here.
Look, and I want to be really fucking clear for anyone listening as well to you that like my laughing isn't like what a fucking overkill that you had.
Right.
I'm aware that you've seen humanity at the gnarliest of shit.
The absolute worst. Yeah.
And so you having a reality that says, I know where the worst of this goes is very different than what in my head believed as a fucking civilian moron. Mm-hmm. The worse this goes.
It's also just thinking about the sheer amount of cookies that were ordered. That's honestly, that's the stark comparison that's making me laugh.
Yeah. Yes. Fuck.
Yeah.
So again, I'm more giggling at like a real naive version of myself.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't think I needed to panic this way as well. Not panic, but do this. But I understand why you did.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah. Well, I've seen horrific things.
Right.
Horrific things. So
like, so how do you feel like, so knowing that, right? Like, and you're setting up that way. You're not in another country.
No. But
this is home.
Yeah, but I'm going back to where I had the feelings. I'm going to tell you the time that I went to,
and you could see that just over viral outbreak news.
Yeah. So I got to participate in a little fun gunfight in Iraq in 2004 called Fallujah. So
casual.
I just had come back from that, got off active duty just a few months later, and then my SEAL team buddies that were already working at Blackwater were like, "Hey, come meet us down in Katrina." And I was like, "Why?" They're like, "Well, you're on terminal leave right now, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Well, fuck, you don't have shit else to do. Come down and help us out. We're gonna need help. We're short-handed, and there's crazy shit going on down there." So I'm like, cool. Grab my plate. Well, I'm thinking I'm going down there to do like rescue and like support stuff, and they're like, "Bring your helmet and plate carrier and your guns." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And they're like, "Bring them."
Yeah, that's as someone who was in Louisiana during that time, right? Like I don't think the news ever quite covered.
They did not.
How gnarly.
They did not.
That stuff went down in Louisiana.
Yeah, they did not.
Like I knew guys fucking dipshits that I worked security at strip clubs with. They got like decent contracting jobs to protect neighborhoods, and that shit was shoot on site. Yeah, like fucking stack them up. Like, I mean, you're down there.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay. So I go get my helmet. I have my own night vision. I have my own plate carrier. I have my own like AR-15 set up, like I would carry it at work. I get in my truck. I go over to Walmart. I buy a bunch of like bottled water, supplies, and shit that I need. I had camping gear with me. I drive straight through down to, I get to Baton Rouge, to the crisis site headquarters. I think where the state police headquarters was and where they were gathering all the rescue assets. I get there. There's a dude there. He was a statey. He's like looking at me like he's like, he was running the gate. He's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, I'm here to volunteer, man. He's like, but what agency are you with? And I'm like, myself. He's like, okay. I don't think I can let you in. And I'm like, no, but I'm here to volunteer and help. And I was trying like not to like tell him who
you were there with,
who I was there with, or who I was here to meet. But while I'm talking to this guy, I hear out over on my left, I hear, yeah, that's him. And I'm like, fuck. And I look over because that's never usually a good thing.
No, that's no.
And I look over and it's my team buddy, SEAL, already working for Blackwater with 3 U.S. Marshals that are in full assaulter kit.
Holy fuck.
And they come walking over and they tell the statey, he's with us. The statey looks at me and is like, oh, okay, cool. And just lets me through. And so then I go with him. And then we got sworn in. And then now we're rolling with U.S. Marshals down in downtown New Orleans.
Whoa.
And we found all kinds of dead bodies that were not drowned, that were victims of looting, victims of violent crime, shot, stabbed. dead. Found a dude with his head cut off in a dumpster. Really ugly, nasty shit. And the surrealness of that moment was more impactful than any of my overseas combat experiences, because I'm in a U.S. city, like looking at boats and trees, high-rise buildings with windows blown out, abandoned, a stench that I can't still to this day forget. Like just the smell of the area was because there were so many dead people cooking in the heat, and the just the fetid, like Louisiana jungle, you swamp, you grew up here in this area, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. So the smell I just will not forget. But yeah, it was, I remember walking through the French Quarter. It's completely abandoned, a couple dead people laying around, and I'm like, what in the fuck happened here, and what the fuck is going on? And continue to fulfill our mission, which was to just basically rescue people, suppress any criminal activity that we found, work with the U.S. Marshals in whatever capacity they want us to work with them in, which was a lot of just searching through neighborhoods, trying to find people, trying to help people, protecting the federal buildings from any looters. So while I'm there, I had just gotten off active duty. I had just been to Fallujah, and my SEAL buddy had just gotten off active duty too. And so we had this one night where there was gunfire going on just south of us in this neighborhood. And so all of a sudden this police car comes around the corner, and it's this, it's a New Orleans PD guy. And he's frantic, and he sees our vehicle parked in the middle of the street. We had a H2 Hummer in the middle of the street. He pulls up.
I'm sorry.
Jumps out. Yeah, right. Jumps out, and he's like, they're fucking shooting me, man. Fucking shooting me. Look. And there's bullet holes in his car. And then he's got a bullet hole in his boot sole.
Whoa.
And we're like, okay, where are they at, man? And he's like, they're down there. And then he bolts. He's gone. He's like, fuck it, I'm out of here.
He's had enough.
Yeah, he's had enough. So the U.S. Marshals took one side of the street, and the BW guys took the other side of the street. And it was just me and my buddy and another guy. But the U.S. Marshals had 14 or 16 man element, and there's 3 of us on the other side of the street. And we were, because of our combat experience, we were clearing houses way faster than them. So we got way out ahead of them.
Right.
They finally catch up to us. Whoever was shooting was gone. They took off. They decided they didn't want to play. So we cleared this I think it was 5 or 6 blocks of residential area on both sides, multiple houses in the dark, nighttime, no power on anywhere. Get back, and I'm sitting there cleaning my rifle, and a dude walks up to me, and I can just see his shadow because it's dark, and I'm just on a headlamp cleaning my rifle, and doing post-mission stuff, and continuous actions post-mission. And so
sure.
and so this dude walks up, and he sticks a card in my face. He's like, hey man, I saw you out there tonight, and really impressed, and I talked to the boys about you. And he gives me a card, and I look at it, and it says Blackwater USA on it. And he's like, I'd like to invite you to our selection. And I was like, okay.
Interesting work.
Yeah. So then I went to selection. We did what we did there in New Orleans for a while, and then left, and then I took selection. And
so it's essentially military for hire?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there... Whose ethos does it follow? Or does it?
Yeah, no, we had an ethos for sure. It was very much mirrored and aligned to what we went by in the in the military.
Okay.
Yeah. So Eric Prince, people, very controversial figure. People love him or hate him, but I had very positive experiences with him. He is a fantastic leader. He cared about his guys. He took care of his guys. He cared about doing the right thing. He cared about U.S. strategic interests. He's a brilliant dude at strategy.
Sure.
Very well read. And he was very in line with it's America first. This whole bad rap we got about being mercenaries or guns for hire or all that crap. All of us were former law enforcement or we were former military, and all of us had ROEs. We had orders from Department of Defense. The contracts were written by Department of Defense. We were there to support U.S. government, foreign, diplomatic, or military operations.
Well, look, I think it's a fucking crazy idea that people get bummed out about that, right? There's an amount of money that's invested into you guys, to learn and develop these skill sets.
Mm-hmm.
And so are you not supposed to go forward with these skills that you develop to make a living?
Right.
Because this work needs to be done by fucking talented people.
Yes.
Like, we've seen what happens when untrained people get in those situations. It's not fucking great.
No, it's not. Yeah. They flee because they got shot in the boots hole. But probably because they didn't have a high level of training and didn't know how to defend themselves properly in that situation. So yeah. So
yeah. Also making fucking whatever a year as a fucking cop in New Orleans.
Yes. Yeah.
In what's now a war zone. I
Yes.
can understand that guy being like, what the fuck
yeah,
is this?
I think back then they were getting paid like $28,000 or $29,000 a year starting to be New Orleans.
Oh, you mean that guy doesn't fucking handle really shitty situations great?
Yeah, correct.
Shock.
Yeah, weird. So, yeah, so I did that, and it keyed me into like how bad shit can get.
Yeah, in a U.S. city.
In a U.S. city. So now I'm reliving that to bring it back. I'm reliving that moment in Vancouver, Washington, where the president's about to announce a state of national emergency, which is no small thing. Like, I feel like people didn't take it very seriously. Like, a state of national emergency is like big. That's some big shit. Like,
well, I think most people, and like from the civilian side, even with myself, right? Like, until I'm so used to something being declared an emergency because of flooding or a fucking hurricane or any of this type of shit. I guess I feel a little like, all right, sit for a second, sick.
Yep.
Like, we're of a curfew. Sounds great. I look at it all as the hassle
yes,
it creates in my life, and none of the emergency.
Yeah. Which makes sense.
Yeah.
Not,
of course.
It's not an emergency until you don't have any air conditioning or Wi-Fi.
No, you're fucking. You're not wrong.
Then shit's fucked.
Yeah. You're not fucking. I can't pretend that what you're saying is incorrect about myself. 100% that's true.
Yeah. So based on that experience, that I had that life experience, I prepped the best way I knew how. Because people, one of the things that I experienced in New Orleans was like people turned on each other for resources immediately.
But that's proven over time.
Yeah.
Like it's we pretend we're pretty fucking rational, civilized creatures.
Right.
It's a very low level of discomfort that changes that across the fucking board for people.
Yes.
We've seen it in the last couple years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So knowing how low humanity can sink when now the survival mechanism has been engaged, I'm like, okay, well, I've seen this movie before. Now I know what to do. And I got as prepared as possible because in my mind, I'm like, cool, if they lock us in our homes, everything is shut down. People that didn't prepare like I did, or other people did, that didn't go get groceries, are now going to be starving. And starving humans are very fucking dangerous humans. And I was like, okay, cool. The reason there's range cards out here is because I don't know how many people are going to come try and take my shit.
Yeah.
Is it 10? Is it 20? Is it 3? Is it 1?
You're in a fucking major city.
Yeah.
Like at some point, right, there's a war of attrition with...
Right. After what I saw during Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans and just know how terrible humans can be to each other, and then just...
So why not fuck off to a less populated area quicker? Or is that like a second stage?
Well, yeah, that was going to be my next thing, depending on... Because
this could not have a freak out, which...
Right.
You didn't need any of those things.
No.
Level of freak out.
Yeah, correct. So, thank goodness.
Yeah.
So there's a thing, I've had enough experience in my life with many things where I'm like, always let the situation develop. So I was like, let's not panic. Let's not run for it. Like, let's buckle down here. Let's be prepared for like, if the zombie apocalypse kicks off, we can deal with that. And I did. I had my truck like, backed into the driveway. I had, all the resources that I need on my truck. I had, supplies staged in my truck. I had a camera pointed like in the house. Like I had one of those like little like, fun little Wi-Fi cameras that you can get and have the little push notifications and stuff. Like I pointed one of those at my truck to make sure no one was fucking with, like was going to come up in the middle of the night and like see my truck and be like, oh, there's a case of ramen back there. I'm fucking smashing the window out and taking it. So, or, hey, here's a fucking lifted Toyota Tundra that's like
I'm
taking it to get the fuck out of here.
Right.
So, yeah. So then I prepared the best that I could, and I was ready to bug out should I need to. But then it just never got to that point, and the zombie apocalypse never came, and the hordes of humans that were rioting that wanted to take all my shit because they're starving never came. And so I just continued to go to work every day because at some point, like, we got deemed essential. So, like, I think I was home for like 3 or 4 days. And then, you know, my boss called and he's like, okay, we're good. You can come back to work.
All right.
And so then I'm like on abandoned highways traveling to and from work. There's literally no human except for me on the highway on this little section where I would like drive to work. And so I did that for a while. And then, yeah, things, unfortunately, we had some other extenuating circumstances with work that I'm not going to talk about. But the punchline was like myself and the other executive staff resigned and left the company because basically it was an ownership issue. So left, stayed with some friends for a while, then found my way over to Montana, and you know, put a tent pole in the ground in Montana for a bit. Loved my time there. Ran into one of my old good friends, Andy Stumpf.
Yeah.
And got the opportunity to like, you know, work with him, and he was really great and amazing, and like let me co-host his show for a while. And so I got to Coast the Clear Hot podcast for a minute on Full Auto Friday, and it was great, and we had a good time together. And then had some other life stuff happen, and it was time to move on from Montana. So I moseyed back down to Wyoming, and I'm like, okay, cool, here I am in Wyoming, and was gonna start building on my property that I own in Wyoming. And then just because of what happened with COVID, like the supply chain went crazy. Like,
right, you can't fucking do anything.
Sheets of plywood went from like
$18.
I
renovated a house.
$138 a sheet. In Jackson Hole, Wyoming, plywood was
nothing there.
An 8x4 sheet of plywood was $138 for like the cheapest, crappiest like composite plywood.
Jesus.
Then 2x4s were $42.99 each. 2x4s are normally like $3-4 each.
$4, right? There's a 10x on building supplies.
$42.99 for 2x4. So I'm like, I realize in short order my build budget's fucked.
Yeah, we don't need to do that now. You could have done like us and remodeled a whole house during all
God,
that. We were at a point of doing it before it went tits up that you can't stop.
Yeah,
because you have to finish it to get it up for up for available and whatever.
Yeah,
fuck. Expensive life is.
Yeah, so now I'm trying to keep an e-com company alive, which we had a fun conversation today about the iOS situation that occurred. So that fucked me. Then Instagram and social media hates me, so they decided to fuck with all my platforms. They deleted my Instagram page.
Because of your far-right beliefs, Brian?
I mean, no, just because of my severe disagreements with like certain social things that are happening around us that I'm not part of the herd. I don't subscribe to herd thing. I'm a very much, we had a great conversation today about how important critical thinking is.
Yep.
And so, you know, I'm a middle of the road, down the middle of the road guy. And I frankly hate that like two fucking idiocracies run our country.
How dare you? They have our best interest in heart.
Yeah, they fucking don't. Yeah, so I hate that. I'm a very middle of the road human. And so, you know, people are very confused by me when you've got like decorated combat veteran that's very pro 2A, but is also very pro choice.
Yeah.
They're like people's brains, like they're like, oh, the wheels.
But
like,
I don't remember when
smoke.
there was such a point that existed in the shift that like, because I understand your stance on 2A means I should probably be able to figure out your stance on what movies you like.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what the fuck, man? Like, we're dynamic people. There isn't this black and white way to address everything.
Yeah.
And even these issues with 2A or the pro-choice thing, there's so much space.
Many shades of gray.
Right.
Like both issues, very multi-nuanced issues.
Yeah, which fuck, like, we're not gonna fix any of that.
No. So then basically I go down to Wyoming, and you know, I'm like, fuck, what am I gonna do here? I'm trying to keep my e-com company alive. I discovered that along this journey somewhere that I had this little inkling in the back of my mind that I wanted a podcast.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I want a podcast. And then also in the back of my mind, as most of us are that have had a military career, then done contracting, you always have in the back of your mind, like, hey, I can always go back to contracting. I can always, like, that's my safety net if I want. So like, you're very careful with like how much of yourself, for security reasons, you put out into the ethosphere. And it just dawned on me, literally.
It's a really interesting limitation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the only thing I have with it, like, is like I've still maintained like some bit of contact with guys I used to bounce with at strip clubs because, like, in case I need a job. I don't know. I know that's fucking crazy at this point, but there's still part of me that's like, hey man, and the guy, I don't know how fucking things end up tomorrow, but like I could go catch a shift.
Right. There's like a safety mechanism that you have in the back of your mind where you're like, okay, go to shit plan.
Yeah, I don't know how many fuck ups I've made to get back to calling those guys, but here we are.
Right. So like all of us have that in the back of our heads where we're like, okay, I can always go back to contracting. And then, you know, so then like I get to a point where I'm like moving on with like media stuff. I'm trying to do like new media stuff. So like I had such a great time, and I'm so grateful for Andy giving me the opportunity to like be on his platform and like really see him do his craft, essentially, because he's a fucking excellent interviewer. And we had a great time, and he taught me a lot about the art and the craft. He was well into it. I don't know. It's like he was in the hundreds of episodes by the time I showed up. Right. So he's already learned a lot. He's figured things out. He's doing it, and he's successful at it. So I got to learn a lot from him about that. And so as I, moved down to Wyoming, I'm like, hey man, like I called him up one day because I was just like, I just had this like burning desire. I was like, I want to start my own podcast. Plus people had been like hitting me up and they're like, hey,
they got a taste of it.
Yeah. Why aren't you on Cleared Hot anymore? I'm like, well, life happens and I had to fucking move.
Yep.
So yeah, I now live like 14 hours away from Andy. So getting together regularly, fucking super hard. So I call him up and I'm like, hey man, like I'd really love it. I'd like your blessing, because I wanted to like pay him that respect.
Yeah,
I feel
right
like
on. No, it makes sense.
Yeah,
right?
he opened that door for me, and I was like, I want to pay him the respect that I think he's due. And I asked him like, hey man, how do you feel about me like starting my own podcast? And he, of course, is his awesome self and was like, dude, absolutely, go fucking do that.
Right on.
And he was super supportive of it. He's
fucking
like,
right
whatever
on,
I can do to help. So he was like, yeah, do it. And so last year I fired it up and we got after it. And one of my friends like just jumped in the mix and was like, he's my producer and like does all the back end stuff like Brant does here.
Yeah.
And he's like my Jamie,
It's the best.
Yeah. And
young Brant.
Yeah. My guy's Cato.
I have Wheezy.
Yeah.
We have a lot of names for Brant.
I have a Cato in my life. And him and I have a blast together, and he's a great dude, and I couldn't do it without him. And yeah, we got the fuck after it. And so neither one of us knew what the fuck we were doing. And so I think I had gotten in contact with you again, and I was like, hey man, what was that equipment that you were using?
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, H6 recorder, Western Digital amp. Like, here's the cables you need. I use the
the setup at that time was still the one like I just traveled with.
Dude, I still have it.
Yeah, it's a great kit.
It's phenomenal.
I built this out of sheer narcissism.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
this isn't to make the show better. This is to make it more fun for me to do. 100%.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I'm gonna get to this. I'm gonna get to this myself. So at some point.
Well, when you do, it's super fun.
Yeah.
Don't let anyone. No one told me that part.
No one told you.
They're like, oh, build a fucking studio. It's way more fun to do the show and to
Yeah.
pretend that it's a real thing.
Yeah, to pretend like it's real. Yeah. So I can hardly wait to get to that point. But yeah, I'm still doing it. We're like 66 episodes deep. We just completed our first year, and so the main reason I asked you about it, and then I think when I did your podcast the first time, you had really great feedback from your audience on it, and you called me up and you're like, hey man, like I've gotten some good feedback on this. You might want to consider doing this yourself.
Yeah.
You said that to me.
Yeah, dude. I still believe that, man. Listening to, like, I've done a lot of these by this point, and like having someone who can tell stories and loop things back around and have insight, like, yo, it's fucking great. Like you should use that skill.
Yeah. And so you said that to me, and then that was the water on the seed that I think I needed that like really caused things to grow. And so I had that going on in the background, and then just as luck would have it, like ran into Andy, and he was like, yeah, dude, come on. and had all those great experiences on Cleared Hot. And then now it's finally time for me to step up and do my own thing. And I'm like, all right, let's fucking do it. And so we did.
Let's go.
And so we're
And the name of the show?
Lone Element Podcast.
Lone Element Podcast. Hell yeah. And we're going to do an episode for yours.
Sweet. Yeah, I hope so, because like
we'll do that.
The whole reason I came down here is like, also like, as I paid homage to Andy, like you were the one that like,
oh man,
like you putting me on your podcast for the first time way back like 4 years ago, whatever it was that was a defining moment for me, because up until that point, like I was saying, like I was very careful with like what
you didn't tell anything. Yeah, that you had told a lot on the show that you hadn't spoke about.
Right. Yeah, I had never spoken publicly about any of the stuff that I talked about the first time, and it felt good to get that off my chest.
Well, what an interesting truth that you're not supposed to own.
Right.
Because what a taboo it is for the team guys or anyone to talk about their experience or any of these stories, or especially profit from it.
Right. I hate that the U.S. government just expects you to like get used the fuck up, risk your life, watch your friends die, destroy your mind, destroy your body, and then you're supposed to just keep all these like little, you know, these life experiences and this training and these valuable things that you could be passing on to other people to change the quality of their life. You're supposed to just hang on to that and go out in the woods and retire and die.
But there's another side of it too, of like the community for a long time didn't support guys coming forward, right? So like that's how ingrained that culture is,
right,
from the top, of like getting used up and like, no fucking way, your job was this.
Yeah.
Like there will be no other benefit other than whatever for the country than what you've been paid for the job.
Yeah, I call it the silent professional mafia. So the silent professional mafia, like the silent professional code is like, you just do your job. You're happy to do your job. You keep your mouth shut. You're the gray man. You don't fucking talk about anything. You don't say anything. And you do that job. You're happy to be there. And then you just shut the fuck up. Yeah. And I mean, yes, if you're like out talking about, like, if you're spilling the beans on like current stuff that's going on that you're talking about with your buddies, that's that's huge OPSEC violations. You know, if you're talking about like tactics, techniques, and procedures that are current, and you're talking about like how we do business, and you're talking about things that could affect the survivability of people that are downrange right now, then yeah, that's a no-go. But you talking about your personal experiences, how you got from point A to point B, things that happened to you, things you learned from your career, like there's nothing wrong with sharing those things.
No, I fully agree. I can't imagine not. So to kind of throw a new direction in this, since we last hung out, you also started kind of dabbling in plant medicine.
Yes.
What got you there?
Okay, so then I just had this like, I was spiraling down the dark rabbit hole of PTSD for a really long time. And it got really bad in 2013. You know, my operational career, I stopped after 9 deployments in 2010, found a new direction, started my own company, had no fucking clue what I was doing product development, was doing firearms training on the side. You know, it was like the former, it's the former military veteran, like starter pack.
Well, saying product development's really fancy for tinkering with shit in the garage.
Right. Yeah. Or my favorite thing now is like when you get guys that are immediately off of active duty and off of an operational career, and they like get a job with like SIG or whoever, and then like they're like, I designed this. No, motherfucker, you didn't design shit. Okay, if you can't take something that's in your brain from an idea to a first article prototype,
right,
I got news for you. You're not a fucking designer. If you can't use a laser cutter, if you can't sew, if you can't, do injection molding, if you can't 3D model things, if you can't 3D print something, you don't even know what the fuck, how to hook your computer up to a 3D printer, you're not a designer. Okay?
I am not a designer.
You're a good idea fairy.
Same. This is great.
Yeah.
I've just figured out my job.
Right. So a bunch of guys. So like after going to design school and figuring out all of these nuances of actual designing things, I realized like how fucking far off the mark I was, because I was that guy for a long time. I was the good idea fairy guy forever, where I was like, yeah, I'm a good idea, like I'm a designer designing things, but I really wasn't. I was going and talking to 2 designers, 2 engineers, and being like, this is my idea, this is why it's awesome, this is why you should make it. And they were doing it, and and it was successful. Like I consulted with several big companies in the industry, like 511, Daniel Defense, Smith Optics, Beyond Clothing. Like I've had some good wins consulting in the space, but like some of those were very much me just being a good idea fairy. And I ran into a point in my career where I was doing that, where I was like, I don't want to be this guy. It doesn't feel good. I feel like I was like having imposter syndrome, where I'm like saying I'm a designer, but I don't feel like a designer, and I'm not really a designer because I don't know how to do any of these technical things that these guys know how to do. So that's why I was like, fuck it, I'm going to go to college. And so I cut off everything. And I think about this time as like when I had originally met you through Nick.
Yeah.
And I stopped everything I was doing in the tactical and defense space, shut down my company, and I went to college. And I at this time I was like coming out of a fucking failed, relationship where I was engaged.
So just like GI Bill still work? You get to kind of Fuck yeah, all right.
Yeah. So
sorry, I don't know enough about all that as I never applied to my life.
So I used my GI Bill basically to go to school, and it was I go to San Francisco. And just a wild, like, because now you and I can like jive on this like, psychedelic, like weird omen thing that happened. Like I was having these feelings of like this imposter syndrome, and I'm like, fuck, I knew I wanted to go. And then I started having all these weird dreams about San Francisco. And I'm like, I'd never been to San Francisco before.
Okay.
And I started having these weird dreams about San Francisco. Particularly, there was this like
streets filled with piss.
No.
Homeless. Great.
No.
Your cars can get broken into constantly.
Several times. You're gonna get lots of parking tickets.
Fuck.
So I was like having this dream about this like specific view of the Golden Gate Bridge. And so I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means. And I'm like struggling along. And then there we are at like, what was it? It was Christmas time. No, it was SHOT Show. It was, Christmas. No, let me back up. So I'm sorry. I'm like getting ahead of myself. So I'm like having these feelings about like wanting to go or not, like, I know I need to go. I want to go to school. I'm having dreams about the Golden Gate Bridge. So I'm like, and I think this was in 2014. I get online and I'm like I Google like best design schools in the US. Like third one down. Academy
San Francisco.
Yeah, Academy of Art University, San Francisco. And so I'm like, So I click on it. Boom, landing page comes up. You know what it is?
Picture of the bridge.
No, not yet.
Oh, damn it.
We're getting there. So it's a CGI animation of a soldier with a helmet on and body armor with an M4 rifle, issued rifle, with a flaming Humvee in the back.
Jesus.
And it says, underneath it says, "Veterans Welcome."
Sick.
And then it was like a veteran was in the CGI program at the school, because they have multiple disciplines there, and like filmmaking and CGI, and computer animation and video game making.
So this was something someone had done.
Yeah, it was just something that a student had done, and they put it up. They put it up on the splash page, and I saw this thing that said "Veterans Welcome," and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." So then I dug a little deeper, and I like requested like a course catalog. So the course catalog shows up, and I'm like having this shitty day, and I'm like getting the mail, and I'm like, and I like fucking throw it on a shelf in the shop. So then like literally a year goes by, and I was struggling at life really hard. I was having a terrible day. PTSD was kicking my ass. I was like,
so just like no movement for that year.
No movement. I was like having a fucking like anger/panic attack, and I was like, I finally got calmed down, and then I was like, I cracked open a beer, and I'm sitting there, and just the end of a really shitty day, and I look up on the shelf, and I see that catalog up there, and I like pull it down, rip the plastic off of it, took a deep breath, took a pull off my beer, flipped it open. What the fuck do you think the inset photo was on the catalog? It was the exact vision of or picture of the Golden Gate Bridge that I was seeing in my dreams.
Interesting.
And I was like, okay, fucking universe.
Been sitting on the shelf for a fucking year.
For a year. And I was like, fucking got it. And so then I call the school up. I book a campus tour, because I was still like, well, that still wasn't good validation.
Does it feel weird booking a campus tour as like an adult?
Yeah, because I was 38 years
old. It feels fucking weird, right? I
was 38.
You get led around by some fucking 25-year-old? Like, fuck.
Yeah, I was 38 when I went.
I know what bathrooms look like.
Yeah. So I booked this campus tour. I go do the campus tour, and immediately I know that's where I'm supposed to be. I like walk through downtown San Francisco while I'm there, catch the vibe. The vibe's awesome. It feels fucking great. I'm like, yep, this is where I'm supposed to be. Like immediate validation of like my higher self being like, okay, yes, idiot, we've been trying to tell you this for a while.
Yeah.
So then And then as luck would have it, like, I'm like, cool. Like, I apply, I come back, I apply. And I'm like, well, I probably won't get accepted. Boom, I get accepted. I'm like, fuck, here's your acceptance letter. So then I was like, okay, well, now I got to register for classes. But then, like, we're at the tail end of like 2015 right now. So I'm still like kind of freaking out about this. And I'm like, fuck. So then, like, I go to SHOT Show. And then, like, my business partner at the time, just fucking not a quality human being, validates the fact that I need to be done with this and move the fuck on. And then I talked to Nick. Like, Nick and I, like, cornered up at this, like, party at SHOT Show. And Nick and I have this great exchange.
Well, he ought to be just about starting school for video work.
Yeah, I think it was, like, the following year he did. Yeah. So anyway, he's like, yeah, dude, fucking do it. He was super supportive. As he
Nick's always been a progress guy.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah. And so I do it, man. So I, like, shut my company down. Or actually I didn't shut it down. I turned it over to my partner and he ran it into the ground. And so, yeah, as I knew it was going to happen.
As it happens.
Yeah. And so I go to school and it was the best thing that I could have fucking possibly done for myself. Like, removing myself from, like, the tactical defense industry, former operational career, and going into an environment that was, like, completely alien to me, because I'd never been to
San Francisco Art School would be fucking completely
I grew up in Wyoming.
Right.
Yeah. And so, like, yes, I've been around the world. I've lived in different cities, but I'd never been to San Francisco. So being there and just feeling the vibe and the energy of that place and being in the epicenter of design and technology and art, and I just went fucking full send. I fucking grew my hair out. It was, like, longer than
right.
It was longer than Nick. Yeah, it was, like, longer than
that
Nick's.
would have been like when I met you.
Yeah, I grew my hair out super long, man bunned it up, was wearing skinny jeans, was wearing Vans, like, fuck anything tactical. Don't even try and talk to me about tactical shit.
Right.
I'll just, like, laugh at you and walk away. And so I immersed myself in everything, like, technology, everything design. I was, like, full in at school, just, like, learning, just soaking up like a sponge, just soaking up everything at school. Meeting really great people there. All were foreign students. I was the only, first of all, I was 38. I was the only white dude in the program. Like, everybody else was from China, Taiwan, Korea, India, Japan. Like, I was the only dude in the industrial design program that was a white dude. Well, what did I do? I put my fucking foreign internal defense and rapport building skills playbook to work, built rapport with all the foreign students. And we established, I still talk to some of them to this day. They're all kicking ass, doing great things all over the world. And built these really great relationships with them. And had a really great time. Started going to therapy because I was still having this, like, PTSD issue. So I, like, go to therapy. I was, like, going to therapy with a human once a week. And then I was trying to get off all my prescription meds because I was on a lot of prescription meds at the time for my PTSD, as we all are.
It is the route we have voted for.
Yes. So correct. So I'm like, I'm trying to get rid of this. And so then one of my friends was like, bro, because I'd never been, I'm like, I'm not anti-cannabis at all. Like,
sure.
I completely support cannabis. And, you know, had dabbled in it when I was a kid. And had dabbled in LSD when I was a kid. And so my friend was like, dude, why don't you try some cannabis? Like, it's legal there. So you can go to a dispensary. You can tell them what's wrong with you, and they will set you up with something. So I went there, talked to a guy who was like, he was like the Obi-Wan Kenobi of weed.
Fuck yeah. Those guys rule.
Yeah.
Dispensaries are the fucking best.
Yeah, he knew everything about everything that is weed. Like, he was telling me,
like, whatever a sommelier of weird.
Yeah, and he was like telling me shit about terpenes. Terpenes. I didn't even know what a terpene was. Had no clue.
I still barely get it.
Yeah, I'm like, okay. And so, like, he set me up with a vape because I was like, I don't think flower. You know, I didn't want to be.
Yeah, vape's a gateway drug.
Yeah, so I'm like, give me a vape. So he gives me a vape, and he put me on a fucking beautiful sativa hybrid strain that was very citrusy and light and had a very light high to it, but, like, crushed my anxiety.
Interesting.
So I was literally not, like, a fucking shaking train wreck anymore once I got off my I started, like, getting off my meds. And so, yeah, it completely, whatever that was that he gave me, I smoked it pretty much the whole time that I was there at school for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it got me off all my prescription drugs and made my life amazing and, like, crushed my anxiety. And then I weaned myself off of that. And then I was, like, completely fine for a block of time. And then I noticed that like I was like having still a lot of survivor guilt. I was still having nightmares every once in a while as I like transitioned through school and was done with that. And a friend of mine, like, who was also had an operational career and did a lot of amazingly violent things too, and was suffering from the same stuff. He got on his like little psychedelic journey earlier than me, and he like handed me a bag of mushrooms, and he was like, "You need to go eat these." And it was just a small. It was a small little batch.
Sure.
And so like I've experienced LSD before, so I was like, when I was in high school, so I'm like, okay, cool, let's give this a go. So I eat the mushrooms and just had it wasn't good, it wasn't bad, it was just a very self-introspective moment that caused me to like look at myself and like forgive myself.
Yeah.
And let go of some things that I had been carrying that were really, really, really heavy. So.
And it does it in a way that therapy is not the same.
Correct.
I don't know a way to describe it because like it's not like I'm anti-therapy, man. I want whatever helps.
No, I got some good tools out of therapy for sure. Yeah. Yeah. This helped me understand that it was okay to let go of the things that I was carrying. It gave me permission it unlocked that level of like, here's the permission you need. This is the cheat code. Here's the permission you need to stop carrying this fucking trauma and let it go. Because guess what? You lived through it. Bad shit happened. You couldn't control it. There's nothing you could do about it. That's life. Be at peace with it. Let it the fuck go. Was kind of like the overarching message that I got on that particular journey. And so after that happened, I was like,
was the message more of a hammer or was it nice?
It was a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Like it started off nice and then it got a little bit like in your face.
It makes sure you understand.
Yeah. It makes sure that it has your attention and you understand. And then same as ayahuasca. And then you.
Yeah, different, but yeah.
Yeah. And then you come off the backside of it. And that was my experience with it. And it wasn't very much. I think it was like a gram, maybe a gram.
Okay. But yeah, it's a real amount to get, a gram's enough to notice you're altered.
Yeah.
It's not enough for the walls to get weird.
Yeah.
But it's enough to fully be altered.
Yeah. It's enough to like.
Your perception of the planet will feel different.
Yes. And it's enough to like work through some shit.
Yep.
So, or at least it was for me at that time. So then fast forward, I started dabbling in it a little bit more. And then I was just having really positive results with it.
Seems familiar. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then.
This is going great. What does more do?
Yeah, correct. What is more? What is more? What is more? And so then a really good, like one of my best friends, like Griff. And he runs Combat Flip Flops.
Okay.
Yeah. Matt Griffin. I don't know if you know him. Everybody
I don't know him personally.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. He'd be an amazing person to have on the show.
We'll do it.
He's a fucking ranger, entrepreneur, phenomenal dude, psychonaut for sure.
Perfect.
He was like completely different human in my life, like had started me on the mushroom stuff. But he got a hold of me weirdly at this like weird time where I was like in a mushroom drought and I was like kind of wanting to like continue to go down that path.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Hey man, how'd you like to go on a little adventure with me?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Come to my house." Now his house is in fucking Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Wyoming. I drive up to Seattle and show up at his house. And I go inside and he's like, "Hey man," hugs the whole thing. Like we catch up for a minute. He's like, "Okay, so you're ready?" And I'm like, "Ready for what? Like, are we going camping? Like, what are you talking about?" And he's like, "Come in here," and like go in the kitchen. He had like 14 grams and he cut it in half and we did 7 grams each.
Let's go.
In a tea.
Yeah. I've never done it in a tea.
So it was, I mean, it still kind of tasted a little bit like shit because there was so much.
They taste fucking bad.
So because there was so much in there.
Oh, they taste
like
so
7 grams.
Yeah, 7 grams of shitload of mushrooms.
Like the bottom third of your cup is
Just
full,
gross.
which you're eating sludge chunks with a spoon because you drink the tea.
Yeah.
So he put spearmint tea and like some honey in there and we steeped it for a minute and then you drank the tea. The tea part was good. It was when you got down to the bottom and you had to like get a spoon and eat this sludge out of the bottom of your tea. That was not spectacular, but we did it.
It reminds you you're doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
I'm choosing to eat this.
I'm choosing to do this. Yeah. And I'd never gone that big before. Like I'd always been around like, I think before that I was like a 3.5 gram was like my best performance. And I got some great messages and clarity out of that journey. But we did 7 grams, and it was a 13-hour ride. And I remember at one point laying onto what I called the affectionately the space pelt, which is an elk. It's an elk hide. Yeah, it's an elk hide that he had. He's an archer hunter, so he killed this elk with his bow, and then caped it out, and it was his first archery harvest, so he kept the hide.
Okay.
And so we affectionately referred to it as the space pelt. And so I was on the space pelt, like riding it like fucking Aladdin's rug through the universe.
Like fucking Falcor.
Yeah. If you could take like the rug and combine it with like the Millennium Falcon.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I was doing.
I've been in that environment before.
Yeah. So 13-hour ride. At the fucking tail end of it, I was like, can I get off? Can I just be done now? Can I please just be done? Because I had experienced so much in that 13 hours. I wrote probably 25 pages in a journal after that experience. And there was some very valuable things in there, and life-altering things for me in a positive way. Mm-hmm. And so then having that enlightenment, because that's what it is, it's enlightenment, I got to the point where I was like, okay, what's next? And I started researching Aya.
Yeah.
And I started talking to people, and I like talked to the fellows over at Heroic Hearts a bit, and then I talked to Griff a bit, and like he's tied into that circle there. And so like we started talking about it, and like we found a very credible and very talented practitioner that's stateside.
Okay.
And he's a fantastic healer. Him and his wife, fantastic healers, and they apprenticed with the Shipibo tribe for 15 years.
Wow.
So they sort of know what they're doing.
Sure.
And that was my entry point into Aya. And then I've done 13. I've sat for 13 ceremonies now.
I have 4. I'm due. I know I'm due. Like Bonnie and I both feel it. Like the next time it presents itself, the answer is we need to go.
Yeah, I think I had done 6 ceremonies by the time you guys went. And then that's why I was like texting you back and forth, and I was like, hey, when you guys were there, and I was like, hey man, how was it?
Yeah.
And I was like, I was so excited for you guys, and I wanted to like know what your thoughts were. So
while we dive in here for the last bit, because I know we have a dinner, don't we? Wasn't there a dinner thing we set up at 7:30?
I think the Schrodinator did set a hard time, and she did say, what time is it?
About 7:50.
Oh fuck, we're gonna be late.
We're
she's gonna be so mad at us.
So with any of psychedelics and ayahuasca or any of that, has any of like the combat stuff of like fucking killing people come up?
No. That was never traumatic for me. I know that sounds horrible, but
I don't think it sounds anything.
I didn't ever fucking feel bad about anybody I had to kill because they were humans that needed to like move on to the next life. They were targeted, they were substantiated, they were confirmed with intelligence, or they were trying to actively kill me or other people around me at the time that I vacated them. Mm-hmm. So I never feel bad about the people that I had to kill in the line of duty. I suffered immensely from like my friends that got killed, some of my fellow Marines, or people that I saw get fucking smoked right in front of me that I had to like do the casualty management on, or the trauma, wounded people dealing with wounded, somebody screaming for their mom while their like femorals like spraying blood all over you is not that's not a fun event. So those are the things that like really stuck with me. And then I had the things that like really haunted me there were a few Marines that were directly under my charge. And when I got pulled, like I trained them from when they were boots fresh off the bus to NCOs leading their own teams. Like that's the point that I got them to. And then I had to go leave to do a different billet and during the operation, and those 3 Marines were all killed. One of which would have been under my direct charge had I stayed. So that stuck with me for a really, really, really long time. And that's like the weight that I carried the hardest was like, and then there were other Marines that were like really good friends of mine that killed themselves post-combat. Like I've lost between my active duty time, my contracting time, I've lost 40 friends and colleagues in combat, and I've lost 8 people to suicide.
That's way too high of a percentage.
Yeah, so just me by myself, like almost 50 people in my life that I knew, worked with, friends with, knew their families, trained, mentored, grew, dead, either from combat or from suicide from combat. So
that's such an interesting perspective that I've never thought of, right? Like my question was immediately the other side of that. Because, I mean, man, the deaths of close people to me in my life have been fucking universe shifting.
Yeah.
And there's been like, fucking 2.
Yeah.
2 really big ones. I can't imagine 50.
Yeah. I mean, that's over a 20-year
sure
spectrum,
it's
but
still too many.
Yeah. Yeah, especially the 8 suicides. Like, one impacted me really heavily where, like, we were really good friends. I was talking to him, and he went dark and went down the rabbit hole, and his mom knew that there was something wrong with him. She couldn't get a hold of him. She showed up at the house. He was okay that time. She put him on the phone. Well, she called me bawling, hysterical. She knew that he was going to do it. I suspected that it was a strong possibility. So, and this is the other thing I carried guilt about, my own trauma about, is like, he got on the phone, and I was like, he did the typical response that we've been trained to do our whole career, where it's like something, like, you're in pain, you're suffering. Hey bro, how you doing? I'm good. You sure you're good? Yeah, fucking good. 3 bags full, ready to go. And that's how we're wired. Okay. That's what they train us to do. Like, you get shot, fix yourself.
Yeah.
If it's too bad, your buddy will fix you. If it's really bad, the medic's coming for you. So like, you're always putting your friends before yourself. You're always putting the mission before yourself, and you're always in, realistically, denial, because it's also painted as weakness to be in touch with your emotions. It's painted as weakness to, like, admit that, like, you're not fucking
I imagine also if you're not okay, right, and you identify as someone who is strong and takes action and does these things in the presence of danger, and now you'd have to admit you're not.
Yeah.
Like, I understand that feeling of, now I'm a liability, I'm no longer valuable.
Yeah. So then I got him on the phone, and he was like, I'm good. And I was like, dude, I will pack my bags. I will come move into you, and we'll do it together. We'll fucking get up. We'll go work out. We'll fucking set a schedule. We'll fucking do things together. I was like, I will help you through this. I was like, I'm not going to judge you, because I'm like, I've dealt with the same shit myself. I was like, I will help you. No, dude, like, my mom, she's like fucking, she's like making this way bigger than it is. It's not a big deal. I'm fine. Like, you don't need to come move in with me. Like, totally shifted gears and completely sold me on him being fine. And so I was like, okay, are you sure? And he's like, yes, bro, I'm good. And I was like, okay. And so we hung up the phone. 2 days later, he went dark again. His mom went over to the house, and he had hung himself in the garage with a dog leash. And she called me hysterical. And so, so that's the shit that bothers me. Not contact with the enemy, not doing what I was trying to do. It's the friends that I've lost in ways like that. So like, how has the experience with psychedelics, I guess, changed or managed it? Or how would you describe it? It just helped me understand that, like, it's okay. It's okay to have emotions. It's okay to say you're not okay. It's okay to ask for help. You're not a pussy if you need help. You're not if you're suffering, don't suffer in silence. Because there's those of us, like, there's so many people now that have, like, been through this shit. Like me, like Nick, like other dudes have, like, been through this, and we're, like, way down the path. So, like, if you're a dude that's like, maybe your career just ended not too long ago, and maybe you were one of those guys that, like, was one of the last rotations in Afghanistan, and now we see how that unfolded and was a complete fucking donkey show. and you're like, you've got a lot of hard regret about that, and you're suffering really bad from your career and from like the way that wrapped up, like you're not the only one. Like I spent 4 years of my life in that country almost, like on all the rotations that I did there, 6 rotations there. So I spent a lot of fucking time in that country. I knew a lot of people. Some of the people that I worked with and established relationships with there, I'm pretty sure they're dead. They didn't get out. We couldn't get them out. We did get some people out. Couldn't get other people out. So yeah, it was those are the things that stick with you. But like the psychedelics have like definitely helped me understand that it's okay, essentially. Like it's okay to ask for help and it's okay to do that. And then it's like helped me shed a lot of that weight. Like you don't realize like how much of a death grip you've got on that trauma and how ingrained it is in you until you're able to like shed it off. And it's like taking your ruck off for the guys that are, I don't know how many listeners that you have that are, former military dudes, but it's like when you do a long ruck, or you've done a ruck before. Yep. You've trained for ruck. Like you've grounded out, you've done that whole distance, whatever it is, 12, 14, 18 miles. And now you pop that ruck off. That sense of like your body feeling light is what it feels like when you come out of a session. You've like shed off so much emotional trauma. It's like
but there's a realization that you've been choosing to hold on to it.
Yes.
Like why am I still, it's all of a sudden whether
right.
It's like, why the fuck am I still holding this bag?
Mm-hmm.
I don't, like no one's asking me to hold this.
Yeah. Yeah. Correct. And it's not like, it's so hard for guys to transition out that like, well, they are wrapped around, this is my identity. This is who I am. And now who am I without this, in my life anymore?
And also like, if I move on, mm-hmm. It's a lack of respect.
Right. Yeah.
To what happened.
Yeah.
Like if I ever not think about this, it's a fucking.
Yeah. I've had a lot of guys like throw a lot of shade at me because I've spoken about this publicly a few times. And like, there's human beings out there that won't seek the enlightenment. They won't seek the healing. They won't deal with the issues. They won't do it. They're stuck perpetually in that moment in time. And I noticed it after a few years of going to like, reunions or like memorials for dudes or like, one of my, the guy that killed himself, I go there and there's dudes around and they're like stuck in that moment in time and they want to tell the same story and they get drunk and then they just want to tell the same stories about that moment in time.
Crystallization, man.
Yeah. They are stuck there. And I recognized that and I was like, I am not going to be that. I am going to continue to evolve. And by all means, I'm going to move forward somehow. And like, because I've moved forward and because I've let go of that trauma and because I've forgiven myself, I've taken a lot of heat from dudes that are just stuck in that crystallization that are like, you fucking turn your back on the dudes, man. You turn your back on the team. You turn your back on, individuals that had been killed or whatever. And I'm like, no, man, I'm not. I love them. I respect them. I wish it didn't happen. It was part of the job. That's the other thing too, is like sometimes the perception of like, it's always a tragedy when you lose a teammate, but there's a level of maturity that you reach when you're doing that kind of work where you're like, this is part of the job. Like I've reached a point of emotional maturity now with it from just age and experience, but also the psychedelic aspects of it to where I still have friends that are working.
Right.
And we talk about it very openly where I'm like, like I have one of my best friends and I'm like, hey man, what do you want if something bad happens on this next rotation? Cause you never know, man. You're only one rotation away from like losing a leg. You're only one rotation away from a fucking really nasty gunfight. You're only one rotation away from like getting blown up by an AID. You're only one rotation away from like, getting your legs blown off, fill in the blank.
Fuck yeah, man.
Getting killed. Leaving your family and your friends behind. So like what, now we have very mature, open conversations about it and it's not even an emotional thing.
Well, I imagine that would help relieve some anxiety.
Yeah.
Of at least like that takes away some of the unknown. Like for me, I know that control everything I can control.
Yeah.
Because I can't do anything about what I can't.
Right.
We're going to get yelled at.
We're going to definitely
We're going to finish second half of this tomorrow. Into section 2.
Part two.
Yeah. So we left off, and we wanted to continue. Like, I know this is one of the longer shows, but as they have been with you in the past, we were kind of talking about your experience of ayahuasca after going through kind of all of the military trauma, and I guess not military trauma, but let's say that life.
Right.
Like once that wrapped up, and I'm like, I know how it has interacted with trauma I had, and so yesterday's question was about how does it felt about being on the, aggressor side of combat, and you said that that's never really been a thing, which I found fascinating, but then it also made a lot of sense that, of course, it's the actual relationships with people you love is the hard part.
Yeah.
And we ended on, which is be easy for people listening as it'll just roll straight through. They don't have to get a catch up. But that it's okay to not be okay.
It's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
And then one of the greatest things that it gave me was, because there's several things, but that was one of the most notable. It's okay to be okay. It's okay to let, to put down these burdens. The other thing that it did, it gave me really great, an ability to what I call watch the watcher, which is like you have your ego inside of you and you're constantly, and there's no human on the planet that is not guilty of this, where you're like constantly watching, constantly judging, constantly forming an opinion of something. You're wanting to fucking have something to, self-validate, and it's a cycle that we're in, and having the ability to watch myself, like my higher self that I'm connected to now because of the medicine, can now watch my ego and put my ego in check so much quicker and better than it did before.
So with that, and like I know that can be complex for someone not who's experienced that space to kind of
just go drink the tea.
Yeah,
people just go sit in the circle, drink the tea.
Eat mushrooms, it'll figure it all out. That's a really interesting idea that, like, for sure now I have like an extra level back that I can look at, and like one of them is looking at the physical things I'm choosing to do, and the other one is being pretty honest with, like, why do I want to do that,
right?
And there's times of it, right, where I catch, and I wonder, like, your ego, the one that you watch, what type of role is that? Because a lot of time, especially for as long now as I've created content, like that ego role for me almost as a director. Yeah. It's almost like this would look better if we did this. And so it's like, hey, take a minute to reset this, even though it's natural, like it looks better in this position.
Yeah.
For some reason, like I'm always aware of like a third person view of everything I'm doing.
Yeah. I mean, that's good. That's good.
I guess.
Yeah.
Because it's really weird, because now, also because of the YouTube channel, like, and as much content as I had, and I thought about this the other day, most of my memory playback is third person.
Wild.
Yeah.
Hey Matt, are these lights changing right now?
Which ones? The ones above us?
Are they fading?
They are. I can stop that.
Okay, let's just...
Sorry, Brant.
No, you're good. Just wanted to get it before I didn't notice it. No worries.
They in a good spot right there?
Yeah, that's fine. Just...
Oh, wait. Sorry, that's not the record one. This is the record.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. There we go. Sorry.
No worries.
Lighting complications. But, yeah, most of my memories now, and whether that's because I've watched most of those things happen again, third person, well edited, I have a very interesting memory of my life.
Right.
My memory of my life is told basically like movies with a soundtrack and like where we were.
Yeah, or like we were talking about yesterday with like that when we were nerding out on like our favorite space movies, and we were talking about like circular time theory that's in The Arrival versus string time theory, and like those type of things. Yeah. These are the kind of things that you will begin to like really dive into after you've had a few bouts with the medicine. You'll really start to take a look at things from a different angle.
And like more of that to me is like that piece I was kind of, that we'd spoke about like rules, like these rules that you have in your life, and who established these rules, and where did they come from? Were they from your parents? Were they from the community you grew up in, the country you grew up in? Right. Those type of things. It seemed that mushrooms for me kind of opened the doors to take a look at all of the rules. and be like, holy shit, time. Like, that one wasn't given to us. Like, we came up with it. Like, there was a point not that long ago, as far as human history goes, that we were like, I'll see you tomorrow around the time the sun's at the top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, like, luckily we didn't have a lot of other shit to do.
When the sun's highest in the sky.
I mean, we figured out hours and minutes for efficiency.
Yes.
To be able to,
Accuracy.
I'll see you tomorrow. Let's try this.
Yes.
Do you have a thing that also tells you what time it is?
Yeah, I'll give you some numbers.
Yeah. So, I mean, even that construct, right? And even that, the idea of like, well, it's 24 hours in a day. Well, not fucking quite. We have to throw an extra day in every 4 years. Right. A whole fucking extra day to make up for it. Like, of course things shift and change, and our grasp on long term is very strange.
Yes. Yeah, the interesting experiment of being a living, breathing entity.
Because long term for us is like fucking 80 years. Tops.
Yeah.
Like what, maybe some people make it to a hundo? Which is fucking crazy to be 80 and then hang out for an extra 20 years.
Right.
Like, yo, I was fucking old 40 years ago.
Yeah, now you're ancient.
Yeah.
Now you're
if
like,
you're 100, like, no one's 70 who isn't like, I'm not old. Nah, man, you're 70.
I have a friend who's got their grandfather, I think, just turned 101.
Get the fuck out of here. Quit. So, like,
100.
1923? That's a very different world to come through.
Yeah, that was the Roaring 20s.
Right.
He was alive in the Roaring 20s. Watched tail end of World War I. Roaring 20s, got to experience the Prohibition, got to experience the Depression, got to experience World War II.
It amazes me, while I'm not the biggest fan of the boomer generation and the current grasp they have on power and the unwillingness to hand it over, very Charlton Heston-esque.
Right.
I have empathy for it. Right? Like, while that's not the boomer generation, right? But you're talking about a guy born in 1923.
Can you imagine his lens?
No, I know, right? I can't imagine his lens, but I also can't. You know, people have a hard time adapting to the changes that have occurred in the last 2 years.
Right.
Which have been more inconvenient on a lot of fronts. But, like, that guy grew up in a world where we don't really have airplanes.
Yeah.
To now, everywhere is okay to go to. Like, it's easy to get around the world.
There's a space station that humans are on orbiting the planet.
Right. Yeah, that's very different than 1923.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's a very different lens. Like, think about, like, how ingrained things are in you as feeling like a person and kind of, you know, in your beliefs and what's this or that.
Right.
By the time you're 40. That was in the 60s. Yeah. Right? Like, so, like, pre-segregation, he's a full crystallized adult. Like, that's a fucking weird life to go through. There's a lot of...
Yeah, I mean...
I just have empathy. I understand why that generation can't understand a lot of things. But get the fuck out of the way.
Yeah.
And it's not them, but the boomers are the same. You know, the people born in the 60s. Yeah, my mom was in late middle school, early high school, like when segregation ended in Louisiana.
Like, she was in high school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like late middle school or something like that. But remembers it. And like, yeah, that's one generation from me. Of like, black people can't go to school with us.
Yeah, wild.
Yeah, I get that things are fucking really hard for them to understand what's going on with more in looks, you know, at gender and sexuality and ways to manage that and how to manage trauma and deal with emotions because
they didn't.
And empathy for that too, right? Like the generation before them, the World War II generation, like the greatest generation, they had real scarcity and had real fucking problems.
Yeah.
And not that our problems aren't real, but I'm talking about like as far as Maslow's hierarchy of fucking needs problems go.
Yeah.
They had real ones like shelter, fucking food, and safety.
Water.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Those aren't the issues I currently deal with.
No.
So I have time and space now to deal with more existential issues. And so you have a generation of people raised with the idea of like, comfort's the fucking greatest thing you can ever get.
Yeah.
And that's the World War II generation talking to our parents, like the boomers. And it's get comfortable.
Right.
Get a fucking job that they'll never let you go. Do that forever. You know you have a paycheck coming 2 weeks for the rest of your fucking life. Show up and go to that place.
Yeah.
And then as that becomes, like, of course it shifts to like, well, why don't I get a job I like?
Passion? What's that?
It wasn't expressed to that generation.
No.
It wasn't a valuable thing. We were raised with it.
Mm-hmm.
The boomers instilled this in us as kids of like this, you can be whatever you want to be, hard work type thing. I don't think they really planned for us to put it into as creative of use.
Right.
They're like, no, firefighters, like the normal jobs, do those things, dream about those.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of you can pretend to be an astronaut.
Yeah. My dickhead stepfather one day fucking told me, because I was like suffering through the initial transition of being out of the military and starting my own business, starting my little design company. He came up to me because he's very much from his parents were World War II era, and he's very much and he's still doing it. He's been working for the same company for literally 45 years. And he hates it.
So crazy.
And I've heard him complain about it a billion times. And he's a coward, and he's taken the safe road. Every single time he's been offered a promotion, he'll like only let himself get promoted so far because he's got some type of fear of fucking success. He likes his little safe box that he stays in.
To play the opposite side of that.
Yeah.
Whether that's fear of success or just fear. Because I don't believe it's a fear of success. I believe it's a fear of fucking up. Yeah. That I can't do the next job.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe there's a lot of truth that people get promoted to their level of incompetency.
Yeah, Peter Principle.
Yeah. And so maybe it's a smart move to stay in your fucking lane where you're good and happy.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of get up to the next job that pays a little bit more. Because, look, man, if you're turned on going to work every day,
mm-hmm.
punching a clock, leaving, catching a paycheck, and like if you ran a house cleaning business, this is what I think about.
Okay.
Like that job as far as fulfillment goes. And believe me, there's plenty of people who have scaled house cleaning businesses to make plenty of fucking money.
Yeah.
It's a job people don't want to do. And so start to finish, that job is very fulfilling. Like you've cleaned a thing. It looks better than it did when you started. There's a notice, like mowing fucking grass.
Yeah.
And when you leave, like that doesn't go home with you. No. There's no problems to solve of like, fuck, I could have done that better today.
Right.
No, you're most likely in an empty home by yourself listening to headphones.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't mad at anybody who that life is like, no, this is great. But it's people that want more that bitch about it. Bitch about their lives and jobs,
right.
Like you're saying.
Well, there's a lot of people out there that don't understand what a valuable and amazing tool for growth that failure is. You took the promotion. You didn't do a good job. You Peter Principled. You fucking fucked up. You got fired. Cool. Take those lessons and fucking use those as a mechanism for self-improvement. Why did you get fired? What did you fuck up on? Cool. Remediate that. Fix it. Educate yourself. Train yourself. Make yourself better. Cool. Now go fucking apply for a job at a different company doing the job that you got fired for and give it another shot if that's what you want to do. Or maybe have some fucking honesty with yourself and realize that like being a fucking sales manager at a goddamn fucking oil field parts company and heavy machinery company for 45 years maybe isn't what you were put here for.
Yeah. But
fear. Or then we're back to the fear equation.
We're back to fear, right? But and overall, like I really think that the conversation behind plants and the conversation behind that and what even what we're talking about with kind of being able to see the ego that way, right? Like it's an awareness thing. Mm-hmm. And there's something that comes with psilocybin or the other things that has turned on an awareness for me that I have never found anywhere else. And an awareness of self, an awareness of like what my real intention and motivation is. Mm-hmm. And man, there's sometimes you catch them, dude, where it's like, but if I do this, they'll like me more. Mm-hmm. You're like, yo, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, that's not who you are.
No, but you still catch it.
Yeah, no, I do it all the time.
Same. Whether that's, promoting stuff for the podcast or the show or any of these other things, like I can catch myself having a voice that changes what I want to do based on if I do this, they'll like it more. And the they being this audience, being this consumer, the customer, any of this type of thing. And so how does that affect, the truth? But at least now I catch it.
Right. Yeah. So I've had several conversations lately with friends that are close to me that have successful entrepreneurial enterprises, and they have like big social media stuff going on. And we've had several really great conversations about the line in the sand between like losing yourself and playing the game versus authenticity. And, my Instagram got deleted and I didn't even have that big of a following, 9,000.
Yeah.
But now I'm back to 800, shadow banned as fuck. Like I'm on the lowest fucking tier of shadow ban hell you can be. And so like I've like talked about this and I'm like, man, there's times where I'm like, maybe I should edit myself more. Maybe I should play the game more. And then I just cringe at that. I'm like, no, I pride myself on my authenticity. I pride myself on being the freedom of the individual. Because that's what I fought for. That's what I went overseas and fought for. Freedom.
Absolutely.
And individual.
And the freedom to express your opinions.
Right. And the freedom, First Amendment.
Right. Yeah, I back all that, right? The only place I counter that is what's my intention of using that platform?
Yeah.
And if that platform is meant for me to impact people in a positive way and help grow my business, doing things counterintuitive to that, which is pissing off the platform and not allowing me to use it.
Right.
Sometimes I realize there's still a lot of power in not saying things.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of making sure someone knows my stance on a thing, I can get away with, hey, nobody asked my fucking opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I'll sit over here because I think I should do whatever the fuck I want. I don't need you to agree with me.
Yeah.
Nor do I need validation.
Yeah.
I'm going to smile and nod and do whatever the fuck I want anyway.
Yeah.
And so that's the only way, like, I manage still having my authentic opinion about stuff versus how I use the platform as a tool.
Yeah.
Because, like, if these are the rules of the platform and I keep driving off the road and getting mad, my car crashes, find a new platform.
Right.
That plays by your rules.
Yeah. Or figure out how to play the game better on your terms.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah. So that's what we're currently doing.
Right, because at the end of the day, right, your intention is still to reach people and help people and share more of a positive message and get people help.
Mm-hmm.
And
which I've done a lot of.
Which you've done a lot of.
The amount of people that are in my DMs that are like asking me, for help on different various like life subjects, like how do I conquer fear?
Sure.
How do I get past this friction point with my family? How do I deal with this shitty leadership at work right now? How do I get starting my own business? Should I start my own business? What do you think of this business model? Like I've helped a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I've been shocked and honored that people get a hold of me and ask me these type of questions.
I do too. I also realize how fucking there's a lot of stuff I'm like, I don't know, man. I can tell you what I did. That's it.
And
I'll just share my experience.
I'm the same way. I'm like, man, I have no fucking idea. I couldn't give you an honest opinion on that. Like I have no experience with that whatsoever. I've answered that way several times.
Sure.
With several subjects, but people keep coming back. They're like, hey. And then people validate it too by like being like, dude, I listened to your advice. I implemented it at work. It worked great. My life is immensely better now. Thank you so much.
That's fucking great, dude. Now, are you starting to see more of the use of plant medicine within the vet community?
Yeah.
Is it finally becoming a little bit more accepted? And
yes. I mean, you still have the far right that's like fucking drug hippie, drug head, fucking, and I hate that.
Give me one person who feels that way, who's experienced. Also, don't tell me about what you took mushrooms when you were fucking 13.
Right.
I need a fucking real adult.
Or your cousin took mushrooms and he got all fucked up and we had to take him to the hospital and get his stomach pumped.
Thought he was a glass of orange juice for 6 months and then tipped over and died.
Yeah.
Fucking Christ. None of that's real.
No.
Yo, none of those stories, none of those panic stories or any of that have any truth to them.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, really, it's evolved because their point of reference, if we're going back to like the earlier boomer conversation, their early experience like that, if they were a straight-laced human during the 60s, was watching the hippie generation, you know, put 18 hits of fucking LSD in a headband and fucking rock out to Jefferson Airplane and fucking act like fucking unhinged fucking wildlings.
Well, the Squares missed out. They should have fucking done that for a while.
They should have.
Well, and a bunch of them fucking did.
Yeah.
A bunch of them fucking did. And then went back and made all the rules that this isn't acceptable for anyone else to do.
Yeah.
And then there's fucking wild people who live on the fucking lam. Like, oh man, I've watched a bunch of documentaries of there's a old guy living out in the woods who is super into fucking ketamine. And like just old guy kicking around.
I'm gonna do it.
Ketamine, I'm very interested in.
Yeah.
I haven't had the chance yet, but
yeah, there's now clinics that are using it for therapeutic use.
Well, the place in Austin, Kuya, it's like right next to On It. Beautiful fucking facility, dude. This place, Brent, you went with me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Kuya, like full wellness center.
Yeah.
So right next to On It, there's cold plunges. There's a big fucking sauna that runs at like 200. They have 6 or 7 float tanks that are dope. They got 2 psychiatrists on staff that both work with MAPS and like psychedelic medicine.
Sweet.
And so like they have 2 people there, and then they do ketamine treatment. I think they do psilocybin as well. I'm not sure on that at all.
Right.
But I know ketamine, like with Dr. Dan Engel's there, and like that.
Is that where he works out of?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I've
so
heard of him.
That's where like, so I think their ketamine session is like a 4-hour session, and it's like an hour of therapy, an hour with the medicine, an hour float, and an hour download therapy with your doc.
I'm doing that.
Right? Like, what a fucking...
I'm doing that.
Like, yo, that's a supercharged 4 hours of sorting some shit out.
Yeah.
I am in.
Yeah.
And, man, if there's steroids for fucking therapy, I'm interested, right?
Yeah.
Like, if that's what this type of shit is, of course I'm interested in this, the same way I've been interested in performance across any other platform of strength or work or whatever fucking helps, man. I'll try.
Yeah. And I think like the negative stigmas of that, like, yes, there are like when you're a kid, you like do everything for recreational purposes to experience it. You want to experience things. At least that was kind of my outlook from when I was a kid, as I was like, fuck yeah, I'll try that. And I'm still like that as an adult. Like, I don't want to leave this life with any stones unturned, any doubts. Like regret is the heaviest thing you'll ever carry in your life. So if you even remotely think that you're interested in something, you even remotely think that you want to try something, fucking go do it. Tell the fear voice in your head to shut the fuck up. Ignore all of the haters that are like, you shouldn't do that. That's dangerous. That's scary, because they're afraid of themselves, and they have fear just pouring out of every orifice of their body, and they're going to splash that all over you. So go risk.
Like there's a really good fucking chance that like whatever it is, the thing you're looking at in your life that you're the most fucking scared of doing, the big change, the shift of whether that's lose weight, a fucking divorce,
right,
any of those type of things, leaving your business, any of that type of shit, deciding to go for a different degree, whatever that thing you fear the most is probably the thing that'll set you free, but you have to commit to it.
Yes.
You have to get rid of that backpack, that fucking thing that you're carrying with you, like we talked about, like that feeling that you can go back to the teams, or back to not teams but back to work, right? Like you're still carrying this safety line with you into the unknown, and it's fucking slowing you down. Like there's still a tug you're having to drag that fucking safety line with, and at some point if you cut it, it'll slingshot forward. And man, that thing you're fucking scared of. And now, like, after doing, making big life changes, I really listen to that voice on a lot of things. And it's like, oh, that seems scary. Whether it's this big 220-mile bike ride or any of that shit.
Yeah. Well, that ruck you were telling me about, I was like, that sounds amazing. But then I'm like, fucking 50-mile ruck. Woo.
Yeah. So that's that 50-mile ruck we're looking to do in Hawaii, like around Pearl Harbor. And we're working on kind of content creation for it. So it's 50 for the fallen.
Yeah. I'm really interested in it.
And it's about doing this hard thing and like remembrance.
Yeah.
And it's about, it's not totally a vet thing. It's not any of that. It's about, just taking a minute to spend time meditating on, and that time, like 50 fucking miles of walking on this sacrifice that someone else has made. And so I dig it. I'm excited to be part of it and tell that story and see what that opens up for people. I think it could be a really interesting meditation. There's something weird that happens at like 5 or 6 hours into a thing.
Yes.
I wish I could get there without giving you 5 hours of my life. If you figure that part out, it'd be great.
Yeah.
Like, I like hour 4 of cardio, but I hate the fucking first 3 so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm to that point now where before I got injured and had 3 knee surgeries, like I was at that point where like warm up wise, like it took me 6 miles to like get warmed up and like where the run didn't suck and where it felt good. And I was like in a good headspace, but that first 6 miles, I'm just like, my body hurts. This sucks. I don't want to do this. Everything's tight. Everything's sore. Like I feel like I want to throw up. Like, and then you finally hit that like warm up point and you're like, oh, okay, good. Yeah, everything feels good now. I'm okay.
Yeah, it's like the first 20 minutes right now on the bike are still that for me. Like every time I go ride or whatever like that, it's that first 20 minutes. I'm like, this fucking sucks. My knee hurts. And it's like, oh, yeah, you're not warm.
Mm-hmm.
You fucking idiot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fuck. Yeah. You don't feel good on your first 5 sets of deadlifts either, asshole.
No.
I just wish the voice wouldn't still show up of like, this sucks, let's stop.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, you're correct.
But he's still there.
It is, yeah. It's certainly still there. Yeah, so you touched on another thing that like I've noticed. So like being okay, not okay, putting down my burdens, feeling good about that, having this really amazing self-awareness now where like I can catch myself, having good emotional control now, like not succumbing to like anger. Like I just used to have these fits of rage, you know, and the fucking bottles of Jameson that I was consuming were not helping with that. But just like ripping cabinet doors off the fucking cabinets because I couldn't find the glass that I wanted to drink my whiskey in.
Creating future problems.
Yeah, I now can like keep my anger very much in check. Like I can spot it right immediately when it happens. I'm now, and I can stop it. And then now I'm like more curious, like we were talking about, like I think last night when we were jumping out of the van to go into dinner. By the way, Bonnie, thanks for being patient with us and waiting for us and getting that amazing place scheduled. The food was delicious.
Yeah, food was awesome.
But jumping out
Yellow
of
belly, Brant.
Yeah. Jumping out of the van, I think we were talking about we were talking about so many things, but like awareness is being curious. Like when I get emotionally triggered by something now, which still is a normal thing, still happens. But like when we'll just use politics because that's what pisses people off more than anything.
That's what fires them up.
Yeah. So like anything I hear politically that like rubs up against me in an uncomfortable way, and that little like now I'm like triggered. Hashtag triggered. I now can stop myself and be like, why the fuck are you mad about that? Like, listen.
So what tools do you use to stop yourself? Like, what's going on?
I just now have this little fucking higher like awareness myself as like, now I just feel that twinge and I'm like, whereas before you don't even notice it.
Like you can step out from it.
I can step away from it.
This
be
is
like, yo, what the fuck you doing?
Yeah, this is exactly what I was talking about with the trip, Matt. Is like this moment of realizing shit didn't go how you wanted it to, and immediately recognizing that I'm going to be mad about it. But like I can either lash out and control it, or I can, fucking freak out and yell and shout and fucking whatever. So like there's an immediate like recognizing of the situation, but then and then it's essentially you're choosing whether you want to or not.
Right.
So like, I get exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So
yeah, having that ability to now, recognize that, stop it.
Yeah, it's like there's an extra watcher on top of the ego.
Yes.
The ego's the angry guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so now I can stop that and I can be like, okay, well, let's have some fucking objectivity. Right. People talk about it, they're terrible at doing it. So like, let's have some objectivity. Let's stop for a second. Let's hear this other person's point of view. Let's try and see things through their lens, which gets to my next point, which is the other most powerful thing that I've, gotten. Another great gift that I've gotten from this is like my ability to reconnect with empathy. When it's your job to hunt down and kill other fucking human beings, you fucking lose that part of your, like they train that right the fuck out of you immediately.
Now, how do they go about training that out of you?
They just reinforce like you're there to kill. Like you're designed, your sole focus in life is you're there to learn how to fucking master the art of like ending other humans.
No, I mean, how is your, how's the bad guy, talked about in any of that? Is it talked about as like this opposing force we need to bring good to and we're winning, or is this like a combatant almost like in a competition setting, or is it looked at more as like evil,
but also like it's dehumanized,
right? That yeah,
like they call our target sets like they're, listen, I'm gonna date myself here because I fucking was in the 90s, but they were like, they called our green silhouette targets that we used to shoot green Ivans.
Green Ivan,
that's a green Ivan target.
So as in like Russian.
Yes.
Right.
Which how well that's aged. So
like if Rocky can't beat him.
Yeah, right.
What are we gonna do?
Right. So yeah, they do a great job of like the dehumanization, and that gets programmed into you, and then like they glorify it, and that's your purpose. And so you lose a lot of your like, and realistically, like, there's a maturity level at 18 years old where you need that. You have to have that. You have to. Because I don't think people have the mental maturity to like, like most of the senior special operations community, like the average age is like 33, I think.
Okay. So
like you've got a huge jump in maturity. So like that's when you see guys are like comfortable with having, comfortable with knowing the realities of their job versus the 18-year-old that might just be there for college money, but now is programmed to go put bayonets in Ivan's face. So yeah, you lose your empathy. You lose your empathy for yourself. You lose your empathy for your enemy. You lose your empathy for your teammates. Everything. It's all gone.
Now within that system, right? Like what gets filtered to the top? Like what gets filtered to the top level? Is it guys that become more aware and develop empathy, or is it the guys who've stayed on fucking track that it's
guys that stay on track? Like that's why PTSD and that's why we get suicide.
So we don't talk about it.
Yeah, we don't. It's weakness to have any connection to anything emotional. So guys just hold it in and hold it in and hold it in. And then because everybody's holding it in and nobody's talking about it with each other, and everybody's terrified of, one, they're going to get labeled by their teammates as a fucking pussy, or they're terrified that like if they admit they have any mental issue or emotional issue, which is probably created by a mental issue, they will get sent to the psych. They'll get a negative profile, and then they will get their security clearance yanked, or they'll get put in a non-deployable status, and then they can't do their job, and then that fucking terrifies dudes. And then they get pulled away from their team, which is their tribe and their family. So dudes will not talk about anything, and they'll just hold this shit in for years and years and years and years. Everybody's going through the same shit, but nobody will talk about it.
No one's talking about it.
And everybody thinks that they're alone, and everybody thinks that they're fucked up, and everybody thinks that they're a pussy internally. And then you wind up with dudes that like get out, and now they've lost their tribe, they've lost their identity, they've lost all these things, they don't know what to do next. They've spent 20 years of their life doing this thing, and now the fucking monsters and the voices come because you've got 20 years of fucking baggage that you haven't been able to offload because it wasn't safe and it wasn't acceptable within the tribe.
Well, think about the connection that most your average dude has to football.
Right.
Right, like your average guy watching football on the weekends, doing any of this, going to games, cheering, that whole thing. Not an athlete anymore. No. Hasn't most likely been since fucking high school. And like that guy, part of that, right, is because high school football is the only fucking time he was part of a thing.
Right.
That there was a shared group of people that had a fucking goal. And they had to depend on each other. That those are fucking brothers. Yeah. And because that's the last time that happened, like going to football games brings that feeling. And if I can get that from playing 4 years of a stupid fucking sport, that it's going to drive some connection for me the rest of my life. That's as far and away less intense of a bonding situation from combat as it could be. Yeah. So thinking about that much more of an intense connection to this brother, this familyhood, these other type of things, yo, you don't do anything to fucking sacrifice that.
Mm-mm.
And especially if one of those things that sacrifice it is talking about any of these issues, right? That if we're going to punish people for talking about these issues, they're not going to talk about these issues.
Right.
Which, you know, to me leads into, you know, one of the hard parts of the 2A talk is about, you know, background checks and psych evaluations and these type of things, because it's not whether or not I think that should happen. I think it should.
I mean, it's already happening.
Right.
To a certain extent.
My problem is, who's the one who gets to make the fucking decision of you're okay or you're not?
Right.
Because if we want black and white lines like we're trying to put on everything, that's a fucking really ugly one to decide. And if that's what's going to happen, here's how it plays out. People that need fucking help won't go get help because it'll come up on their records that they got help, which means they can't protect themselves.
Right.
They won't fucking do it. If that's the way we build the system out, it doesn't fucking work. I see that side. I see that side to the background checks and the 2A is like, who watches the Watchmen, right? Like, it's a, who's deciding who's okay here and what psych evaluation passes? These motherfuckers?
Right.
These 70 fucking 80-year-old geriatrics that don't have anything to fucking do with us anymore. These billionaires get to make that fucking call?
Right.
No fucking way.
Well, and plus I talked about this the other day with like somebody about red flag laws and why they would fail. If we look at red flag laws through the same lens that we have to deal with these social media issues with polarization and weaponization of the platform, to where people can be canceled, people can be censored. We've got bots, we've got AI, people can get their pages swarmed on, and you can just get it reported by an AI or by a bot that's been programmed to do that.
Programmed to do it.
And then your page gets shut down. So now if we equate what's already happening there to red flag laws, I'm just fine. My mental acuity is great. I'm not going to harm another human being. Love 3-gun shooting, and I'm speaking in a hypothetical. I'm not talking about me necessarily. I'm creating a hypothetical situation. I go home. I'm unloading my gear in my garage. My garage is open. I flip on some tunes. You know, grab me a beer out of the fridge, my garage. I go to my gun bench. I open my safe where I keep all my guns stored safely. I pull out my guns out of their gun bags, and I'm like, now cleaning my guns and organizing my gear and like getting everything tuned up because I just shot this match. Yeah. I just went and shot a 3-gun match, had a great time, recreated, did what I love to do. My neighbor across the street, he's anti-2A. He's way over there on the left side of the spectrum, hates everything about guns, thinks nobody should own them, looks over, sees me drinking beer, listening to Creedence Clearwater Revival, cleaning my AR-15 that I just used to shoot this 3-gun match. Calls the cops.
Because there's a racist cleaning guns across the street.
Yeah, there's a white supremacist that lives across the street from me that is like, he's dangerous. He's been waving guns around. He's acting crazy. He's listening to strange music in his garage. He's drinking alcohol.
So now even then there's a report.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a complaint filed about you.
Yes. So then the cops show up, and now you've got this complaint filed, and they might not do anything right there, but now you've got this little red flag tick on your record. And so now if he continues to do that, just like they do on Instagram, where they will continue, like they'll troll you and report, even though you're not talking about anything that breaks community guidelines, just the fact that you're getting reported will trigger the automatic mechanisms that are on the back end of that platform, and now you're fucked. So then like they do that 2 or 3 times, and now they've got to do something because there's 3 reports. Right. And if they don't do something, if they don't step up and they don't fucking take your guns and do an investigation, and you do something, then that falls on them. And that's why red flag laws don't work and why they're dangerous, because they can fucking be weaponized.
Yep.
And there's no control measure there.
Well, I wonder, just so much has been lost within humans with nuance, right? Like how it's not black and white on anything.
No.
There isn't any issue.
No.
That's a black and white one.
Right.
I mean, even... even killing someone else, there are times that's totally acceptable.
Yeah.
And we don't have any problem with it. So we can't pretend every life, like the arguments are really bad on both sides if we try to make it black and white. Like there's some circumstances that people need fucking help.
Yep.
Ugh.
Yeah. So back to having empathy, like being reconnected to my emotional state. and having empathy for other people, having the, you know, ability to stop and want to know, even though I vehemently disagree with them maybe, but want to have a want and a desire to see through the lens. Cause like, as we said, when we were jumping out of the van, I was like, well, you know, to see if I'm right or wrong. And you're like, yeah, but it's not about right and wrong. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. It's not about right and wrong. It's maybe just about learning something.
Yeah. What was this a preferred outcome?
Yeah.
To the decision I made?
Yeah. Maybe you informed me on something that I didn't know that shifted my opinion or perspective on it.
Also, right and wrong changes over time.
Yes. I mean, Andy used to do that all the time when we were on the podcast. He was really diligent about the amount of research he would do, and we'd be discussing things, and he would illuminate things to me that I hadn't known or that I hadn't researched or found, that I was like, oh, fuck, that's a great point, man. I didn't even consider that, and I didn't know that. And it would like shift my position on things.
Right.
Occasionally.
However, if you sit on the side of the table as I know everything and fuck you, none of that information ever gets to come in and make any change to you, because you've already decided, I fucking know everything. Yeah. And you can't learn shit if you know everything. Yeah. That's typically a real bummer.
And yeah, and then so I've discovered there's a variance of humans out there that have their perspectives on the plant medicine thing. And one of the ones that I've run into is like, oh, fuck that hippie shit, dude. I don't want to turn into a soft, weak bitch. Well, I can tell you, because I've done enough of it now, that is not the case. Like I like to refer to it as maintaining your duality in your lethality.
Yeah, it's a warrior poet, man.
Yeah, correct. Like
that's fully that. I don't have a great name for it because warrior poet isn't my favorite.
Yeah, no, it's not mine.
It's my favorite description of it.
Plus, I think there's an Army Ranger that branded that. So
probably the best version of it. Is a friend of ours brand Violent Gentleman. And they're like a hockey brand. Yeah. And like some of their photos are just those two goons like shaking hands, all beat to shit.
All beat
like,
the fuck up.
Violent Gentleman, man. Yeah. Like that. They're like, do no harm, but take no shit.
Yeah. Correct.
And also, like that Jordan Peterson lines about
being a monster.
The being a monster, right? I want the capacity of that. I don't need to exercise it. Yeah. But I need to know that if shit goes south, I have options.
Correct.
I can fucking run. I can move. I can camp. I have some skills. I have other things in the tank for options to do shit. And none of it's even planning for some fucking apocalypse. Like, I don't want to be fit and strong and capable for that. Why wouldn't I be? Right. Why wouldn't I be as interested to figure out what the fuck this thing can do? Right. What a fucking cool tool I got dropped into. Yeah. This mech is fucking rad. This avatar is way fun. Yeah. Right? And it fucking adapts over time and changes and lets me fuck with it. And like, some of the parts get worn out, so we fix it and put in new ones. And then there's some new limitations, and I'll figure out what it can do from fucking here. Yeah. But, man, not taking pride in like seeing what the fuck this thing can do.
Yeah, my friend put something in really great perspective for me one day. One day I was like having a bad day and I was bitching or complaining about something. I was being a cunt. And my buddy looks over at me and he goes, bro, you're a fucking ghost driving a fucking meat-covered skeleton made out of stardust on a rock flying through space at 70,000 miles an hour. What the fuck do you have to be worried about? And when I stopped and thought about what he had just said, it made me laugh my ass off, but it also like made me stop and think. And I was like, oh, fuck, he's right. Like when you really boil it down to that level and you think about like the reality of like what this is and what's going on here and consciousness and all the things that we do not think about regularly. And this, you know, like you said, an avatar situation, like.
And it gives a different awareness to like how little the problem I have is, and how not only little, but how personalized that problem is, right? Like if I can zoom out from me, like in a Google Maps type of satellite view, and like there was say like an epicenter for my problem and how wide it stretched. Yeah. Like you wouldn't have to zoom out much for you to be like, far. It's just in your head.
Yeah,
like,
right. You just
like,
click that thing one time.
That's it. And be like, okay, so nothing else is affected by this anywhere. Fucking great.
Yeah.
I can chill out.
Yeah.
It's going to be all right.
Yeah. Perspective's important.
You've had a number of close calls with death. I mean, other than
yes,
surviving a night, not getting eaten by a grizzly bear with a fucked up leg.
Yes.
Like other instances with death you've had, which I'd love to hear some stories. And then 2, how has reflecting with the plant medicine been on any of those experiences? Like with like close to death shit?
Yeah. Okay. So let me think of, I mean, there was a lot of times. I mean, specifically everything happened, I mean, during combat operations, but I mean, you know, I did have that night in the mountains where I thought I was either going to die of hypothermia or get eaten by a bear. I've been on aircraft that have almost crashed where like buzzers and sensors and like lights were flashing and the crew chiefs were running around frantic and there was a lot of turbulence and I was like, fuck, I'm on this helicopter and it's going to crash into the ocean right now and I'm going to fucking die. Luckily didn't happen, but scared.
But did just like all the buzzers go off and like everyone just stood around like we're cool again?
Yeah, well the helicopter started shuddering really fucking bad. Like abnormally. I mean, helicopters, like they vibrate enough as it is when you're on them, but like this one was like, it was noticeable. And
they operate on magic as it is.
Yeah,
so.
and the crew chiefs started running back and forth, and they were like yelling into we couldn't hear what they were saying because we weren't linked into the internal comms, but they were like yelling back and forth with each other, running, and they were doing things, and like,
God damn it.
Fucking the lights got flipped on in the bird, like the interior lights, so they could like work on something that was like down from me because I was sitting right next to where the ramp is.
I just realized like at the level of problem solving people that are out there, like I feel pretty confident in my ability to solve problems, especially like when shit matters.
Yeah.
And then I realize now that there's people who have to solve crashing helicopter maintenance problems while it's falling in the sky.
Right. Yeah. While we're actually flying.
God damn it.
Yeah, like
I can't solve any problems.
Yeah, no, like 800.
What the fuck level of stress is that?
Yeah, 800 feet above the ocean, or the level of stress where you're sitting there watching this unfold and there's not a fucking thing you can do to help.
No, stay as far out of the way.
Yes,
don't slow anyone down.
Yeah, you might die in the next 30 seconds, and there's nothing you can fucking do about it.
Are you a helicopter pilot and/or mechanic, or own a spare helicopter right now?
Right. Yeah. No. Then get the fuck out.
Shut up.
Just sit there. So yeah, I had that on a couple occasions, and then there's like there's definitely like firefight stuff that happened where like, I mean, if I had a nickel for every time a bullet or something narrowly missed me, I'd be a millionaire.
So sure. Never taken around.
No,
never.
No,
I've never in armor. Never.
Nope. I've had shrapnel fucking stuck in. I mean, the first fucking 15 minutes we crossed the line of departure in Fallujah. I was like I was behind the gun, and this was in the day. This is 2004, so we didn't have the super armored, upgun cupolas that they had after I was not doing that job anymore. I was just exposed from the fucking waist up behind a gun with like a blast chicken plate over the gun. So like anything shooting directly at me,
good to go.
I'm pretty good to go. Anything from the sides or the back or the top, I'm fucked.
Not so great.
So this is a good one. So we're fucking rolling up. We're doing a movement to contact on this house, and we've taken fire from this house, and I was in charge of a FIT element, so that's a foreign internal defense element. So I was working with Iraqis, and so I was embedded with them, and we're maneuvering up, and I'm pushing them. And we're getting online and we're assaulting this house because we're taking fire from it. And I'm like peppering it up with I got the 40 millimeter grenade launcher rocking on this thing. So I'm suppressing it while we move up. And my driver pulls into this, he's a Lance Corporal. His name's Erwin. Great kid. But he pulls into an intersection. And I fucking noticed it out of my peripheral vision. And I kick him and I'm like, fucking get out of the intersection, motherfucker. Because you don't want to be where you can get hit from all sides. So he pulls in the middle of this T intersection, and sure enough, as I kicked him and I'm like, back the fuck up, he puts the truck in gear, and as we start to roll back, I fucking see a puff of smoke out of my fucking peripheral vision. and it was an RPG. Like a dude had run out in the street, and he's like, "Oh, here we go," and he shot an RPG at us. So we fucking back up. The rocket skips.
This motherfucker saw y'all and said they parked in an intersection. Yeah, and let's go.
Let's fucking go. Yeah, and he fucking.
God damn it.
Yeah, and he was probably only, I don't know, maybe 150 yards away from us. Shot this rocket, and Irwin had backed the truck up just enough. Just stupid timing. Had backed the truck up just enough where the rocket skipped off the hood of the Humvee.
Get the fuck out of here.
And hit the fucking brick wall that was like 20 yards away from me. 20 feet away from me, probably. And it exploded. And I just got fucking showered. And I was like, ugh. Because I saw the puff of smoke and I was like, we're fucked. I fully expected to like get blown the fuck out of the turret. Like I thought we were going to take a direct hit. And so rocket explodes on the wall. Misses
That's so
us.
much closer than any other rockets that have been shot at me, by the way.
Yeah. And so, and so my bell was rung super, super hard. And I just remember like swinging the gun around and looking, and then he was gone. And then I immediately looked down and I could see like the whole top of the vehicle was just like huge chunks, like
wall.
Yeah. Of paint and gouge marks from shrapnel in this like circular pattern around me. And I look down and I'm like looking at myself, and I look at my sleeve and I've got holes. I can see daylight through my sleeve. And then I look down and like my fucking top was like sticking out of the bottom of my plate carrier, and there was a huge hole in it that was covering my ass.
Fuck.
And I'm like, and I've seen like at this point, like, I don't know, they were like 2 weeks into the operation. Like I could see, like I've seen plenty of dudes get hit and not know it.
Yeah.
Because adrenaline's pumping so hard. So I'm like looking around, and like it fucking like there was fucking chunks, gouges taken out of the side of the gun, gouges taken out of the top of the Humvee. Like my first aid kit got blown off my plate carrier, shredded and blown off my plate carrier. My digital camera hanging on the turret or on the fucking hatch next to me, fucking in pieces everywhere. So I'm fucking hit. I have to be hit.
Right.
I have to be fucking hit. So I'm like, fuck, I might be hit. So I like jump off the fucking, get out of the gun, jump down. Meanwhile, firefight's still going. Iraqis are still maneuvering up. They're still exchanging fire with the house. I jump off in the fucking, I jump off the fucking hood of the Humvee, or off the top of the Humvee. And the doors fly open, and my comms guy, Brown, and my driver, Irwin, jump out. And they're like, what the fuck, Sergeant, are you okay? And I'm like, I am now like doing blood sweeps on myself. Right. I'm like, I'm fucking hit, man. I'm fucking hit. And they're like, where are you hit at? Where are you at? I'm like, because I'm convinced I have, my shit is shredded.
None of this makes sense why you shouldn't be.
Right. And so I'm like, I probably got it in my ass cheek because that's where the fucking biggest hole was. So I fucking pull down my fucking pants. I'm not wearing underwear. Fucking pull down my pants. I'm like commando. And I'm like cock and balls hanging out. Bullets are flying past. And I'm like, I'm fucking hit in the ass. And I'm like blood sweeping myself, you know, and there's like no blood. And I'm like, am I fucking hit? And they're like, you're not hit. And I'm like, am I fucking hit? And they're like, Sergeant, you're not hit. And I'm like, I'm fucking hit. Where am I hit at? And they're like, you're not fucking hit. And then I finally figured out like, okay, guess I'm fucking good.
What the fuck?
And I pulled up my pants, and then everybody we're like looking at each other. Bullets are flying by. Like bullets were like hitting the fucking tops of the wall that just where the rocket just hit. They're hitting the street curb next to us. And we're just in this moment where like I dropped trow in the middle of the fucking street because I thought I had a fucking huge chunk of shrapnel that had blown a fucking part of my ass cheek off.
Just half-assing it out there in the war zone.
Right. So like cock and balls out in the wind, fucking pants around my ankles, like fucking blood sweeping my ass with my hand to try and fucking see if I'm hit. And I wasn't hit. And we finished up that, you know, I fucking put my pants back on. Like fucking, I was so pissed by then. Got back on the truck, emptied the rest of the can out on that fucking house, reloaded the gun, pushed everybody up. Then my Iraqis pushed through, assaulted the building, cleared it. And then we, I think we cleared a couple more houses that day. And then we ended up firming up and like just grabbing a house and strong pointing it, turned it into our patrol base for the night. And so then I was like shaking out my gear, checking on my guys, going through our like, you know, patrol base actions, you know, cleaning gear, changing batteries, starting a rest plan, letting dudes eat. And I'm like shaking out my kit, and I like took off my blouse and I like held it up, and like where it was hanging down, there was like several holes where I could see like sunshine that was going through just where the shrapnel had come through my sleeve and had gone by me and missed me. And then that huge chunk that was taken out of my blouse, the best I can figure is that like, it was like I was in a body position where like my blouse was like over the top of the Humvee, but it wasn't touching my body where I thought it was when I moved and looked down, and it just got hit by shrapnel and went through it. And then, you know, my fucking, my bleeder kit blown off my fucking plate carrier, my camera shredded, all those things. And I'm like, how the fuck did, and I found some small chunks in the top of my helmet.
God damn it.
Little tiny
Good work,
ones.
gear.
Yeah, little tiny splinters in the top of my helmet where my helmet cover was shredded. And I was like, still this day, I'm like, how the fuck did nothing hit me? Nothing.
God damn it, man.
Yeah. So yeah, I've never taken a bullet. There was a situation where I did pull some fucking grenade shrapnel out of my fucking leg with a Leatherman.
So how has plant medicine dealt with any of that? Or has it?
I mean, those things aren't the things that fucking bother me, though. Those aren't the things.
Like the near-death stuff of like any of the moments of like, oh fuck, that could have been it, or should have been, or whatever that feeling is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very aware of that, and I have ruminated on that several times in my conscious state, but I've never had that come up during a session with the medicine. Like it's never. Yeah, a lot of my trauma was just like saying goodbye to the people that I lost, you know, or like realizing that I was carrying all this heavy weight and had to put it down. Like those are the things that I like really work on. And that's like, you know, when you go into a session, you set your intention. And so like that's been primarily like when you set your intention, I'm like, hey, my intention for this is to explore my trauma, come to peace with it, and let it go.
Right.
Like I specifically verbatim, that was one of my intentions for like one of the sessions one of the ceremonies that I sat for. So yeah, like having near death experiences, I don't know, weirdly enough, like, I don't know, that was always part of the job. And it was wild as fuck when it happened. Like situations like that, you know, I had another situation where we were moving forward and a sniper took a shot at me right at the exact moment where I was kneeled down on this corner and I was pulling security, and one of my Iraqis said something to me, and I like turned my head and like looked back so that I could see him because he was behind a car behind me in the kneeling position, and I was trying to hear what he was saying. And when I moved my head and like went back, like a bullet went right by my face and like hit the wall and exploded and like fucking made my helmet all cockeyed and hit my glass. Luckily I was wearing like my M frame, so like my left eye didn't get fucking blown out of my head by concrete chunks. But like shit like that it was wild when it happened, but like I never had it come up in ceremony, and I've never like really been affected by those moments.
Okay.
Where I'm like, oh, that was fucking crazy. I mean, because, you know, from a spiritual standpoint, like we're all going to die.
100%.
We're all dying.
But
like
I think,
nobody's getting out of this alive.
I know for me, there was a big shift when I had the awareness of like, oh, a reality that like forever isn't fucking real.
Yeah.
Like, you know, any of that, even when it was looking at getting married, when it was like, we'll be together forever. It's like, no, we won't. Best case scenario is one of us watches the other die.
Mm-hmm.
That's the fucking best way this turns out.
The best way.
Fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Like forever doesn't fucking exist.
No.
Right. And so we're on a ticking clock the whole time. And so like that realization for me was, you know, a mixture of my father dying and losing identity with sport and going through chronic pain and realizing like, oh, I can't do any of the things that I've always loved to do.
Yeah.
And so kind of that has been what Not Dead Yet has been about, is this reminder every day to go forward.
Yeah. This guy right here.
Yeah. And so, you know, with you having real near-death experiences, do you feel like it's freeing for like wanting to try new things?
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Like I'm definitely like, it's helped reinforce like leave no stone unturned. And if you really want to do something, go fucking do it. And if it scares the shit out of you, even better. If you fail at it, even fucking better, because that'll make you better. You'll get something out of it. You'll learn something about yourself. Like people that get so wrapped up around, I can't fail. And that's another thing that's like ingrained in us in the military, is like failure is not an option. Quitting, not an option. Weakness, not an option. So like now getting to the point of growth where I'm at, where I'm like, no, I want to fail, because if I do fail, I mean, I'm not intentionally going out trying to fail everything I'm doing, so don't get me wrong on that. But like, if I do fail, great. why did I fail? And it's an opportunity for me to make myself better.
Right.
To learn and make myself better.
Right. Yeah, failure is a fucking incredible tool, man.
Yeah.
I think failure is a much better teacher than success ever is.
Yeah. I've said it several times to people. I'm like, when things are going good and everything's rad and everybody's giving each other high fives, you don't get much growth out of that. When you...
No, you just do that again.
Yeah. Correct. When you get the shit kicked out of you and you fail at something or you get broken off super hard, that will shift your lens and how you see things. That'll educate you. That'll make you better. That'll make you stronger. Like it's just a mechanism for like nothing ever good came without hard work, or no perspective really shifted, or your lens didn't really change that much from when everything's great all the time. Like getting your ass kicked, you know, is what is...
It's valuable.
It's super valuable.
It's valuable for everyone.
Yeah.
I think both physically, mentally, spiritually,
Yeah.
all those things.
Yeah.
I think having a fucking real moment of getting your shit kicked in with taking some time to figure out who the fuck am I and where do I exist on all these things.
Yeah. And that's the part as you go down the journey with your medicine. Like I've sat for 13 ceremonies now, and I've had really great ceremonies where I've like felt super connected and felt the most love and connection to the universe, to God, to everyone around me. Like there's been several occasions where it's been like the most powerful like feeling of love that I've ever had and connection in my entire life. There's also been journeys where, you know, you are going to face your fucking darkest, nastiest parts of yourself. And you have to fucking deal with that.
Yeah.
It's like the best way I can describe it is if somebody put you in a room facing the evil, like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde situation where like you're going to get put in a room with your ego, who's your like fucking carbon copy of you, but like the evil, gross, selfish, you know, lying, manipulating, shitty part of yourself that all of us have inside of us. And you have to go fucking, somebody tosses a knife in the middle of the room and they're like, go fucking kill that. It's like Thunderdome. You're going to Thunderdome your fucking self. And I've had situations where the best way I can describe my ceremony was ultra violent, like a fucking knife fight in a phone booth with myself, with my trauma, with my perspective, with things that I was attached to that were not serving me anymore, things that I was carrying that I was fucking vehemently not going to let go of.
And I think a misconception with the plant medicine stuff too is like you can for sure be able to let all that go.
Yeah.
And it helps.
Mm-hmm.
The medicine has an ability, it has an intelligence in it to kind of guide you through that.
You see what you need to at that particular given juncture to deal with what you need to deal with.
And if you choose to pick that baggage back up,
yeah,
it'll happily come back with you.
Mm-hmm.
Like there has to be an awareness still afterwards.
Yeah.
Man, the hyper awareness of not just intention, but like motivation of why I do things,
right,
is one of those I run. And like, because again, so few things are black and white.
Yeah.
You know, that there are, you know, I look at like, what are the percentages and then like, what are gross percentages of why I do a thing? So like, yeah, I know, say my decision to not have kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know for me, it's not there. Like I've never felt it. I've never felt the desire. So there's a lot of reasons, but there's also part of it. And I don't know what percentage it is, but there's part of it that loves how anti-fucking establishment it is and loves how this is what it could be if you didn't choose to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I fucking hate that there's part of me that's one of the reasons I like it.
Yeah.
But I'm aware that there's some fucking piece of me that has that too.
That exists, yeah.
Right? And like that part, like I need to fucking dig out.
Mm-hmm.
Because that part's gross.
Yeah.
The part that feels it as some comparison or some fucking proof or some narcissism of why this is the best.
Mm-hmm.
Why I'm fucking right.
Yeah.
Like that piece I fucking hate. I know it exists.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean the other doesn't too.
Right.
You know, that there is an awareness that I think my better calling is doing some other things.
Mm-hmm. And that's okay.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Ultimately, that's okay. But the
But the awareness of having that much of an in-depth look at myself to say like, that's fucking gross, dude.
Well, every single one of us has that part of us that's attached to the ego. The ego is not the good part of yourself.
So this is one I've thought about a lot. And regarding ego, like I look at mine as having two type of parts. And so I have this ego that wants to be better than other people and wants to be looked at in a certain way and wants to be viewed in a certain way. And I'll do the things and read the books and say the things and blah, 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 blah to be presented as this.
Right.
Right. Like I'm aware of how I'm being looked at. And the ego that wants to get more of that guy.
Yeah.
And then there's the ego. Like, it's not like I don't want to make progress on physical things because there's ego there too. Like, I want progress. I want to fucking win. Like, I want to do it. I want to prove to me. Like, that ego I like.
Yeah.
The other cunt, this narcissistic fuck that's getting in the way and can't be damaged, and the one that's insecure and doesn't want to be looked at in a certain way.
Yeah.
That fucking guy, he's a waste of energy. But the other dude...
But he exists and he's not going anywhere.
No. You can take away how loud he is.
Yes.
And it's one of those that, like, again, it's the awareness, too. He doesn't go away. I'm not pretending that's not there. It just doesn't get a vote. It's like, oh, okay. I see you again.
As you practice, he gets less and less and less of a vote.
Yep.
But it takes practice and it takes diligence and it takes work. And you have to go sit with the medicine and learn how to do the things that gives him less of a vote, learning the tools or the methodology in dealing with that gives him less of a vote every single time.
Yeah. Yeah. The other weird parts of ego that'll still pop up, right, is like there's a level of narcissism to deciding to record conversations with your friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
yeah,
like, I have to fucking acknowledge that.
Yeah.
That, like, you know, it's one of those things that I think people would like to pay for. Listen to me jabber.
Yeah.
It's a weird, that one gets weird with me because it's hard to remember it's a skill and it's a thing and a craft that I've given a shit about.
Right.
And if I get the opportunity to use this platform to have this thing I built to share important information of things that helped me switch on, to help other people go forward, to help drive new conversations, or even just a bigger awareness to something else.
Right.
You know, if anyone out there listens and they're like, fuck, I can do anything with my life. There aren't any fucking rules. The only rails that have been put on this thing, I put them on.
Right.
Like, that's what I fucking want. Like, I just want people to be as excited about doing their thing as I am mine.
Yeah.
And man, till the fucking lights go out, I plan on being on the gas.
Yeah.
I don't know when that is.
Yeah. Pedals on the right. Push that shit down. And like, don't succumb to fear. Like, you can't. Fear is the monster of self-doubt. And like, once that sets in, like, you will not take any risks and you will not grow.
No.
So
growth always comes on the backside.
Yeah. And you're going to die. It's
true. It's a fucking pretty good fact. But with modern science, my income, 150, 160, that's not crazy to think.
Let's hope so. I'm still waiting for Neuralink thing to come out. And
what do you think about that?
It's exciting.
Would you go Gen 1?
No. I don't do Gen 1 anything. I don't do Gen 1 anything. Yeah. No, I wait. I'll wait that one out. And everybody, like, they have a misconstrued conception of like what that's supposed to be. Like that he didn't design that for like mind control, because, you know, when humans hear this, they're like, oh, you want to connect my brain to a computer so you can control me.
Is that a fear people have? That's
Yeah.
never the one I run into. Go ahead, though.
Yeah, people are afraid that they're going to get like mind control.
Like they'll turn us into robots?
Yeah.
Okay.
They'll mind control. So they'll turn
They are.
Yeah, correct. So yeah, you already have a computer that's attached to you 24/7. It's
Right.
called your cell phone.
It's just a really bad interface.
Right. Yeah. So the reason, you know, he invented that is he wanted people that were paralyzed to be able to walk again and move again.
Right.
So he wanted to basically put in an interface that will like rewire your neural connections to help repair or bypass spinal injuries, to where if people are paralyzed, they could fucking learn how to walk again. That was the primary reason that he developed that technology.
And then we get one story about a cell phone putting in your brain, and the whole thing goes to shit.
The whole thing goes to shit. He's trying to mind control and track us.
We're such dummies. It has to be so frustrating being Elon Musk trying to get shit done with us.
Yeah.
He's like, it's just born. Fuck, 1,000 years too early, man.
Right.
I could have been really happy and fit in with people a lot better in the future.
Right.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah.
I invented PayPal, by the way. That's just his other thing I did.
Yeah.
You're all welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome. Made your life easier. You're welcome.
Well, dude, let's wrap this up.
Cool.
This has been great.
Dude, thanks so much for having me on. I'm psyched to be here with you. It's a fucking long time.
It's been a long time,
Yeah,
dude. It's been really good.
Yeah, it's good to reconnect. So
where again can people find your show and all that?
Yeah, so you can reach me. You can find the show at Lone Element, Lone Element Podcast. We're on Spotify, Apple, all the usual places you'll find a podcast. Recently started a YouTube page. We've got like 4 videos on there. Going to continue to work on that. The what else? Info at Lone Element if you want to email me, because some people love email. And then you can find me on the lowest, smallest tier of shadow band hell, like in the darkest ring of shadow band hell on Instagram at Lone Element _actual.
There you go.
So yeah, come shoot me a DM, shoot me an email, come say hi.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Glad we alpha brain the shit out of these things,
dude.
Rocket fuel.
Yeah, I love it.
I told you. Psh. All right, shut her down, Brant. Don't blow the robot.